Our book today in the Thom Hartmann Book Club is Crusaders, The Epic History of the Wars for the Holy Lands by New York Times bestselling author Dan Jones. This is from chapter 1. It begins the book, The Count and the Imam. Count Roger of Sicily lifted his leg and farted. "By the truth of my religion," he exclaimed, "there is more use in that than in what you are here to say." His advisors stood chastened and a little perplexed. The Count before them was in his late 40s and salted to his bones with the experience of military campaigning in southern Italy and the islands of the central Mediterranean. As a young warrior, he had been described by one flatterer as tall and well-made, a most fluent speaker, shrewd in counsel, far-sighted in the planning of things to be done, cheerful and pleasant to everyone. In middle age, he had hardened somewhat and was not one to waste his words on fools. The plan the advisors had recommended had seemed like a good one, as courtiers' plans very often do, before they are shredded by the critiques of short-tempered potentates. Not far across the sea from Sicily, roughly 75 miles at the closest point, lay the remains of what had in ancient times been called Carthage, afterward the Roman province of Africa, and now in the 11th century, Ifriqiya. Its cities, including the capital Mahdia and on the coast, and Kairoun Island, where a vast mosque and school had for many generations been frequented by the greatest philosophers and natural scientists in North Africa, were under the shaky command of a crumbling dynasty of Berber Muslims known as the Zirids. The countryside was controlled by various Arab Bedouin tribes sent from Egypt to drive the Zirids out. Political stability was collapsing. Here lay warm and fertile farmlands. There sat prosperous port towns, all ripe for the taking. Roger's counselors thought so, and they had therefore recommended to their testy overlord the proposal of a cousin whom one source names only as Baldwin. This Baldwin had come into possession of a great army of Christian soldiers and was casting around for somewhere godless to conquer. He had asked Roger's blessing to come to Sicily and use it as a launch pad for an invasion of Iroquois. "I shall be a neighbor of yours," he had explained, as though this were good news. But Roger of Sicily was not feeling neighborly. Iroquois was undoubtedly ruled by various followers of Islam, he said, but those infidels happened to be sworn partners of the Sicilians in agreements that kept the peace and allowed for a rich exchange of goods in the island's markets and ports. The last thing he wanted, he ranted to his gathered minions, was a cousin imposing on his hospitality, waging a reckless war that would disrupt Sicilian trade if it was successful, and cost him a lot of money in military support if it failed. Iroquois may indeed have been vulnerable, but if anyone was going to exploit that, it was going to be Roger himself. He had spent the last 2.5 decades, almost his entire adult life, carving out his rule in the region, and it would have been a limp end indeed if he were now to put it at risk, in pursuit of some harebrained scheme cooked up by a kinsman who had never troubled the soil of the island with his sweat. If this Baldwin wanted to fight Muslims, said Roger, he would have to find a different part of the Mediterranean in which to go about his business. There were plenty of places he could name that would be preferable to Sicily's backyard. He summoned Baldwin's personal envoy to his presence and informed him of his decisions. If his master was really serious, he said, then the best way to proceed is to conquer Jerusalem. That is how it all began. Roger, Count of Sicily, was 11th century Europe's ultimate self-made man. He was born around the year 1040 as the youngest of 12 sons sired by a minor nobleman from Normandy called Tancred of Hauteville. Given the protocols of inheritance, being born even as a second son implied a lifelong burden of fortune hunting rather than easy inheritance. To have 11 brothers ahead of you was a disaster. But by the end of the century, the Normans had begun to conquer their way around Western Europe. They took command of Saxon England in 1066. At the same time, southern Italy fell under their gaze, and opportunities that may have seemed limited for younger sons within Normandy itself, but for anyone prepared to travel, opportunity abounded. As a young man, therefore, Roger had left his homeland in what is now northwest France and set out for territory that already called many of his kinsmen and countrymen, the rich but unstable southern Italian regions of Calabria and Apulia. Toe and heel of the Italian boot, Calabria and Apulia were lands where resources were plentiful, authority was contested, and an ambitious young man with a yen for politics and warfare might make his name. Other Normans of the Hauteville clan had already found success here, fighting against the rival superpowers in the region, principally the Byzantine Greeks and Roman popes, both of whom regarded the Normans with suspicion bordering on alarm. Want to connect with the show online? You can find the Thom Hartmann Program on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
Well, it is, as Sean calls it, Take Down Trump Tuesday. Welcome to the program. We're going to have conversations about the impeachment, the articles of impeachment that were that were introduced or rolled out, let's say. I don't think that they've been formally introduced into Congress yet. There's a certain parliamentary procedure, but the press conference was just an hour or so ago. The number one is for abuse of his power in office. Donald Trump abusing the power of his office, which includes the Ukraine stuff. And Jerry Nadler said, our president holds the ultimate public trust. When he betrays that trust and puts himself before country, he endangers the Constitution, he endangers our democracy, and he endangers our national security. So, as I was saying, in the second hour of the program, Julio Rivera is going to drop by and offer the Republican opinion. And in our third hour, Bryan, who is a Republican but is also kind of a never-Trumper, is going to drop by. I'm very curious to hear what Bryan is going to have to say about this. But, I mean, let's just consider who this guy is and what he's been up to, right? First of all, the first investigation into Donald Trump, his campaign, and its association or its possible association specifically with Russia, I think, frankly, it should have been a lot broader than that. But nonetheless, that lasted 15 months. It produced 34 indictments and charges of individuals, 3 indictments of companies, 5 guilty pleas, 4 convictions. The over 191 criminal charges, 2 counts of conspiracy against the United States, 2 counts of conspiracy to launder money, 8 counts of bank fraud, 10 counts of bank fraud conspiracy, 10 counts of subscribing to false tax returns, and we still don't know what's in Trump's tax returns. 6 counts of making false statements, 13 counts of conspiracy to defraud the United States. 24 counts of aggravated identity theft. I mean, it just goes on and on and on. The Republicans know, and this is the amazing thing. I mean, it's like somebody this morning was making the comment about, if it walks like a duck and talks like a duck, it must be a piano. Right. Republicans are not unaware of the fact that Donald Trump is guilty of obstructing justice, of obstructing Congress, and of trying to bribe a foreign leader. And in fact, I would say extort a former leader. I mean, this is common knowledge. They're not disputing the facts. They know that the people who showed up as witnesses against Donald Trump, I mean, I think Zelensky was Vindman, Alexander Vindman. He showed up to testify, talked about how his dad, who had lived under the Soviet Union, how his dad was so worried that his son was going to speak out against the president. And he said, "Don't worry, Dad, I'll be fine." And then what did the Army do the next day? I mean, literally the next morning, they had to move him from his off-base home onto a military base because of all the death threats he was getting. I mean, these people from Christine Blasey Ford forward, anybody who has spoken up against Trump or any of the people who are loyal to Trump has literally put their lives at risk. And the Republicans know this. And they sanction this. They're not speaking out against this. I'm not hearing, Ted Cruz or any of these guys come out and say, you shouldn't go after these witnesses. No, they got no problem with that. The Republicans all know that if there was one piece of evidence out there that would show that Donald Trump was not guilty of the crimes that he's being impeached for, one piece of evidence, that he would present it to Congress, or at the very least, he would present it on Fox so-called news. Instead, his only defense is, there's nothing there. I mean, this is a guy who has lied over 10,000 times, who is getting rich at the expense of you and me. Our tax dollars are going to support his properties all around the world. He's put his own interest over the interest of the country. Rana Foroohar is one of the editors over at Financial Times, and a week or so ago, in fact, it was December 1st, there's a newsletter that the Financial Times publishes called Swamp Notes. And, I get it in email. I think it comes every day. Maybe it's a couple days a week. And she just reprinted the Declaration of Independence. And I'm reading this going, whoa. I mean, this is from the Declaration of Independence. This is the indictment against King George, I believe it was the second, ultimately they declared independence from, and then the third that they ended up fighting the war against. I may have that wrong, but in any case, King George of England, he has refused his assent to laws, the most wholesome and necessary for the public good. Right? In other words, he won't sign off on laws that are good for people, like maybe prohibiting AK-47s or AR-15s. He has forbidden his governors to pass laws of immediate and pressing importance unless suspended in their operation till his assent shall be obtained, and when so suspended, he has utterly neglected to attend to them. Like maybe not letting California define its own emission standards? I mean, how many examples can you think of there? He has endeavored to prevent the population of these states, for that purpose, obstructing the laws for naturalization of foreigners, refusing to pass others to encourage their migrations hither, and raising the conditions of new appropriations for lands. Gee, you think about the wall, think about the 16-year-old kid who died in ICE custody, laying on the floor, a cold floor of a cell with 103-degree fever, writhing in pain for 25 minutes on camera, and then dies. The law says ICE can only hold him for 3 days. He had been there 6 days. He has obstructed the administration of justice by refusing his assent to laws for establishing judiciary powers. Now, for that, I would point to what looks like a corrupt deal with Anthony Kennedy and his son to get Mr. Brett Kavanaugh in. But before that, I mean, this wasn't Trump, this was Mitch McConnell, but Merrick Garland, anybody? He has made judges dependent on his will alone for the tenure of their offices and the amount and payment of their salaries. Right. Donald Trump was bragging last week. 1 in 5 federal judges now is a Trump appointee. He has appointed more judges than any president in the history of the United States, and he's only been in office 3 years. Franklin Roosevelt was in office for, 11 years? No, it was longer than that, from 1933 to 1945, whatever that is. 12 years? 13 years? Trump has put more judges into place. He has combined with others to subject us to a jurisdiction foreign to our Constitution and unacknowledged by our laws, giving his assent to their acts of pretended legislation. Yeah, like, enlisting Ukraine to find dirt or to create dirt on your political opponent. He has combined with others to subject us to a jurisdiction foreign to our Constitution. For cutting off our trade with all parts of the world. Well, I'd just say screwing up our trade. He has abdicated government here by declaring us out of his protection and waging war against us. I think you could say safely that all the blue states feel that way. He raised, he eliminated your ability to deduct your property taxes if they're over $10,000 a year in blue states, among other things. I mean, look at what he's doing with emissions controls. He has plundered our seas, ravaged our coasts, burnt our towns, and destroyed the lives of our people. Does that remind you of climate change? Literally, America is on fire. Our coasts are at risk. This is the Declaration of Independence. Meanwhile, another thing that Donald Trump is doing is turning the United States into an authoritarian state. In an authoritarian state, if you speak out against the authoritarian, you put your life at risk. I already ranted about that. In a healthy democracy, you have a high level of tolerance for differences of opinion. In autocracies, in authoritarian states, no, you can't have that. And this is what's going on. I mean, the norms, the standards of political dialogue in the United States that we historically had have been blown up since the advent of Fox News. And Rupert Murdoch helping bring to power these authoritarian right-wingers, just like in England, just like in Australia. I mean, the entire idea that the rule of law is like the thing that we honor, that's become a partisan debate. The Republicans are saying, Trump broke the law. Yeah, that's okay. He's the president. You can't even investigate a president when he's in office. I mean, Ambassador Yovanovitch said, no, I'm not going to break the law here for you, Donald Trump. He fired her. And then he told Zelensky she's going to go through some things. Another hallmark of authoritarianism, great article about this, by the way, by Ruth Ben-Gate over at CNN. Another hallmark of authoritarianism is that it promotes, authoritarian governments produce, quote, alternative facts. They promote things that are not true as if they were true. It's a divide and rule strategy, and it's tearing America apart. This is authoritarianism, also known as abuse of power, also known as what the first article of impeachment is titled. I'll continue my rant in 4 minutes. Stick around. It's 18 minutes past the hour.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
We're talking impeachment. By the way, the new NAFTA it looks like it's going to pass, and they got rid of the provision that would help the pharmaceutical industry. Good thing. And welcome back. Jake in Seattle. Hey, Jake, what's up?
Hey, Tom, how you doing this morning?
I am well. What's on your mind?
Well, I got to say, I'm a little disappointed about how things are moving forward with the impeachment hearing.
What is the source of your disappointment?
Well, I want this bum out. And it seems to me that if we wanted him out, we would do everything we could. We would exhaust all possible means to get these people to come and testify in front of Congress.
Did you see the press conference this morning, Jake?
I didn't, no.
Oh, okay. Well, one of the points that I believe it was Jerry Nadler made, it might have been Adam Schiff, was that it took them 8 months through the courts to get a court ruling that Don McGahn would have to testify. That ruling has now been appealed to the Supreme Court. It'll be another 8 months before the Supreme Court rules on it. If the Supreme Court says, yes, Don McGahn has to testify, he no longer even works for the government, as soon as Don McGahn shows up to testify, he'll start refusing to say things citing executive privilege. And then they're going to have to go back to the courts. This is a process that could take 3 or 4 years. When the Attorney General under Barack Obama refused to show up for Congress in the Fast and Furious, it was like the 3rd or 4th time he said, I'm just not going to come back and testify anymore. I've said everything I have to say. The Republicans sued him. It took 7 years. That lawsuit was resolved last year. So either you go ahead now or there's no impeachment. So, Jake, if you want to see this bum out, taking these 2 very narrowly focused articles in areas where there can be basically no disagreement. I mean, I've been arguing that there should be 10 or 15 articles of impeachment, and let's go through the whole list and let's tell history. These are the things the president can't do. I still feel that way, but I totally understand that if this guy is actively in the process right now with Rudy Giuliani over in Ukraine with this right-wing TV network that's funded by some billionaires, what you've got right now is Rudy Giuliani and Donald Trump actively involving a foreign government and foreign corrupt prosecutors in Ukraine with corrupting the 2020 election. You don't think that we need to stop that right now?
Do you think that will stop when the Senate acquits him?
Yes, I think that a trial in the Senate is going to wake up a hell of a lot of people. This is just the beginning. The hearings that you've seen in the House, they're starting to get repetitive, and people are not quite paying attention like they were yesterday. We didn't even carry most of it. But I think the simple fact is that when you get to a trial and you've got witnesses of fact, and probably the trial is the point, since John Roberts, the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, will be the judge at the trial. There's a very good chance that if any of these witnesses are claiming, I don't have to show up, I'm not going to show, Don McGahn and all this kind of stuff, that would be the point at which it goes directly to the Supreme Court for a very rapid response, or John Roberts could even rule on it. So I think that we need to get this thing to a trial as fast as possible. And if this is the way to do it, I'm supportive of that.
You're right, Tom.
Okay. Thanks a lot, John. Good talking to you. We'll be right back. It's 22 minutes past the hour here on the Thom Hartmann Program. Defending America from the weapons of mass deception. Stick around. I'm going to finish my rant, and then I'll pick up your phone calls after the bottom of the hour. So a lot going on. The House Democrats laid out 2 articles of impeachment this morning, obstruction of justice and, abuse of power and obstruction of justice. And, it begins. Want to connect with the show online? You can find the Thom Hartmann Program on Facebook. Thom Hartmann here. My new book, The Hidden History of the Supreme Court and the Betrayal of America, has arrived. What if the Supreme Court did not have the power to strike down laws? Discover the hidden history of judicial review and this scam called original intent. Learn how we can save the planet by modernizing the Supreme Court. And most important, how we can democratize the Supreme Court now before it's too late. From the time Americans wake up until the time we go to bed, everything we do, touch, ingest, breathe, and use has been touched by the Supreme Court. In this book, I lay out the history of the Supreme Court from Alexander Hamilton until how the court overstepped its constitutional powers. America does not belong to the kings and queens of the court. It belongs to the people. The hidden history of the Supreme Court and the betrayal of So as I was talking, we're not just seeing. I mean, his abuse of power is not just, I think I'll withhold some military aid. It is so much larger than that. This is absolutely huge, and one of the other things that Donald Trump is doing is he is getting other Republicans to essentially sanction his crimes or commit crimes with him. I mean, he's got, Senator John Kennedy of Louisiana and now Senator Ted Cruz of Texas going on national television parroting propaganda points from a foreign government's intelligence service. Now, these may not technically be legal crimes, but they're certainly the kind of things that basically it's like the mob, right? This is how you prove you're a made man. You want to be a made man in the mob or in many gangs, you have to commit a crime. Sometimes it's a high crime, like murder or robbery, armed robbery. Sometimes it's a much lower crime, like, being the guy who drives the car, the getaway car. But you've got to commit a crime to prove that you're worthy of the mob boss trusting you. Well, that's what Donald Trump has been doing. He's got Gymnasium Jordan out there, and Matt, drunk frat boy Getz out there, going nuts on things. And it's just like these guys, once you're in, you can't get out. I mean, this is a system that actually creates crooks. This authoritarian system. This is a very, very dark world, this thing that Donald Trump is up to. Walter Schaub, who was the director of the U.S. Government Office of Ethics. Now, this is part of the executive branch. It's an Article 2 branch. It's under the president. And Walter Schaub, in the last administration, was the director of this Office of Government Ethics. And he came up with a list of things that the Republican Party and Donald Trump are guilty of. And just think of this: soliciting foreign attacks on our elections. Now, first Russia, then Ukraine, and then China. And, according to Seth Abramson, Saudi Arabia, Israel, and the UAE as well. Using federal appropriations or other resources to pressure foreign governments to help win an election. Putting into place an across-the-board refusal to acknowledge any congressional oversight. I'll continue with this right after the break, and then we'll pick up your calls.
You're listening to the Thom Hartmann Program. Call 202-808-9925.
Stick around. We'll be right back. Still short. Delaware, Louisiana, Mississippi, Nebraska, New Jersey, Rhode Island, Tennessee, West Virginia, and Washington, D.C. for our 50-state challenge that would unlock a $10,000 gift from an anonymous donor. And thank you, donor. And every single one of those states had to be a brand new person who has never before contributed to Free Speech TV. And we did it. And thank you. Thank you to whoever you may be. I'm guessing you're watching me right now in Delaware, Louisiana, Mississippi. Well, actually, in every single state. We had to get a new person in every single state. So thank you. Thank you so much. Now, and, so that's 10 grand for yesterday. Now, what do we do with today? Right? I mean, we have a lot of work to do. We are still behind from last week. Last week was not even close to our goals, shall I say. And we really need to catch up. So please call now, 877-378-8669, and make your contribution to Free Speech TV. It's the time of year that many of our religious traditions tell us, as do the pagan religions, the Yule log and all that sort of thing, that it's the time of year to come together and be thankful for each other, for all the gifts that we have in our lives. This morning, walking into work, I was looking up at the sky and saying just thank you for everything, for my work, my home, my family, for the people who participate in our program, for everybody, and everything. And it's such, gratitude is such an important thing. And I want you to know that I am very grateful that you watch this program, that you tell other people about this program, and that you support this program if you're able to. And there's a lot of ways to support our show and the other good programs, great programs on Free Speech TV. If you have the means, call 877-378-8669 and toss some cash Free Speech TV's way. That's what we need to keep the electrons flowing, to keep the signal on the satellites. The migration to the internet has been extraordinary under the leadership of Ron and Nina, and they we've got Apple and Roku and Sling, and it's all kinds of stuff. I mean, it's really quite extraordinary. But also, so we need the cash to keep that going, but also you can support the program by letting other people know about the program, and creating a little circle of people who are, maybe on your Facebook page or Twitter or in your neighborhood or at your sewing circle or book club or at the local restaurant where you see the same people over and over, whatever it may be. Spread the word. And thank you for that, too. I'm very grateful for Free Speech TV, for all the great people who work there, for the people who work in development there, Christy and Lydia, for the people in programming, for engineering, it's just extraordinary. If you're as grateful as I am, please pick up the phone now, 877-378-8669. There are some premiums that Free Speech TV will send you in exchange for certain gift levels. With a $20 gift, you get a bumper sticker that says, "Gravity, the only law Trump hasn't broken." With a $50 gift, you get the Free Speech TV tote bag that says, "Nobody is above the law," which is sort of our slogan for the day. This morning the impeachment articles were laid out. Not sure when they're going to vote on them, but I'm guessing it'll probably be in the next week. And then it goes to the Senate, and we'll see where all this goes. But Trump thinks he's above the law. Nah, nobody's above the law. With a $120 gift, we have two things that you can pick from. Either the T-shirt that says "Never Again Is Now," or this is special, just added today. And that is, I have another book coming out in the Hidden History series. We're trying to bring out two of these books every year. They're small books. They're about 190 pages, and 5 by 7 in size. They fit in your pocket, and they're just, well, depends on the pocket, but like in a sports coat or in a handbag or something. And the first was the Hidden History of Guns and the Second Amendment. The second was the Hidden History of the Supreme Court, the Betrayal of America. The third book, which will be out in February, I believe, is the Hidden History of the War on Voting. And it's essentially the hidden history of the Republican war on voting. But, the publisher didn't want to put the word Republican in the title. Free Speech TV is going to be getting these books early. If you take that as a $120 gift now, you will not get the book until January or February, but you'll get it before it's in the stores. With a $240 gift, we've got the online class with me, the virtual class with a $360 gift. 3 books, Hidden History of Guns and the Second Amendment, the Supreme Court book, and the Betrayal of America, and my new book, ADHD, Hunter to Farmer's World. And with a $1,000 gift, come to Portland and hang out with us for the last hour of the show, and then we'll walk down the street and have lunch, and it'll be a good time. And I'm looking forward to that. So please call now, 877-378-8669. Thank you. Coming up on the Science Revolution podcast this week, can you deny we are now standing in an extinction event and disinformation is one of the causes? Mari Margil is the director of the International Center for the Rights of Nature, and she joins me to talk about nature's rights. Other topics include, is obesity causing brain damage in children? And how atmospheric rivers fuel extreme floods in America. You can find the Science Revolution where all fine podcasts are available. Welcome back. Thom Hartmann here with you. I was going through this list of Walter Schaub, the former director of the Office of Government ethics, soliciting foreign attacks on our elections, using federally appropriated money to do so, to win re-election, across-the-board refusal to comply with congressional oversight, firing the heads of the government's top law enforcement agencies because they allowed an investigation of the president, retaliating against whistleblowers, investigating investigators who investigated the president, attempting to award the president's own company federal contracts, using personal devices, servers, or applications for office communications, communicating secretly with foreign leaders and foreign governments, things that even our own government didn't know about or didn't want known, abandoning allies, destroying or concealing records, expressing empathy for white nationalists, covering up for the murder of a journalist, violating human rights and international law at our border, operating a supposed charity, lying incessantly to the American people, relentlessly attacking the free press, spending 1/4 of all his days in office visiting his own golf course, 1/3 of all his days in office visiting his private businesses, violating the emoluments clause, giving security clearance to his children and abusing the process, drawing down on government's efforts to combat domestic terrorism, refusing to investigate and build defenses against interference in our elections, a documented campaign of obstruction of the special counsel, lying about a hush money payoff, refusing to fire a repeat Hatch Act offender, calling members of Congress names and accusing them of treason for simply conducting oversight, attacking states and private citizens frequently and in terms that demean the president. By the way, that's one of the things Andrew Johnson was impeached for, using the presidency to tout his own private business, causing the federal government to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars at his businesses, over $100 million on boondoggle trips to visit his properties, hosting foreign leaders at his private businesses, calling on the Justice Department to investigate political rivals, in nepotism, and supporting authoritarian leaders around the world. So that was Walter Schaub's list. Here's the actual list. This is from the impeachment articles that were dropped this morning. And I quote, this is from Article 1, Abuse of Power. Using the powers of his high office, President Trump solicited the interference of a foreign government, Ukraine, in the 2020 United States presidential election. He did so through a scheme or course of conduct that included soliciting the government of Ukraine to publicly announce investigations that would benefit his re-election, harm the election prospects of a political opponent, and influence the 2020 United States presidential election to his advantage. President Trump also sought to pressure the government of Ukraine to take these steps by conditioning official United States government acts of significant value to Ukraine on its public announcement of the investigations. President Trump engaged in this scheme or course of conduct for corrupt purposes in pursuit of personal political benefit. In doing so, President Trump used the powers of the presidency in a manner that compromised the national security of the United States and undermined the integrity of the United States democratic processes. He thus ignored and injured the interests of the nation. And then, they go through and break it out exactly what each one of those things were. And then they summarize, in all of this, President Trump abused the powers of the presidency by ignoring and injuring national security and other vital national interests to obtain an improper personal political benefit. He also betrayed the nation by abusing his high office to enlist a foreign power in corrupting democratic elections. And then Article 2, Obstruction of Congress. It reads, Donald J. Trump has directed the unprecedented, categorical, and indiscriminate defiance of subpoenas issued by the House of Representatives pursuant to its, quote, sole power of impeachment. President Trump has abused the powers of the presidency in a manner offensive to and subversive of the Constitution. In response, and then they enumerate exactly how he did that. And then they say, in response, without lawful cause or excuse, President Trump directed executive branch agencies, offices, and officials not to comply with these subpoenas. President Trump thus interposed the powers of the presidency against the lawful subpoenas of the House of Representatives and assumed to himself functions and judgments necessary to the exercise of the sole power of impeachment. That's a phrase from the Constitution. It says the House of Representatives shall have the sole power of impeachment vested by the Constitution in the House of Representatives. And then they break out exactly what he did in order to accomplish that and the names of the people that he said not to do it. And then it's only 8 pages long. And then in all of this, I mean, this is pretty incredible. The last couple paragraphs. Through these actions, President Trump sought to arrogate to himself, in other words, to seize for himself, the right to determine the propriety, scope, and nature of an impeachment inquiry into his own conduct, as well as the unilateral prerogative to deny any and all information to the House of Representatives in the exercise of its sole power of impeachment. In the history of the Republic, no president has ever ordered the complete defiance of an impeachment inquiry or sought to obstruct and impede so comprehensively the ability of the House of Representatives to investigate high crimes and misdemeanors. This abuse of office served to cover up the president's own repeated misconduct and to seize and control the power of impeachment, and thus to nullify a vital constitutional safeguard vested solely in the House of Representatives. In all of this, President Trump has acted in a manner contrary to his trust as president and subversive of constitutional government, to the great prejudice of the cause of law and justice, and to the manifest injury of the people of the United States. Wherefore, President Trump, by such conduct, has demonstrated that he will remain a threat to the Constitution if allowed to remain in office, and has acted in a manner grossly incompatible with self-governance and the rule of law. President Trump thus warrants impeachment and trial, removal from office, and disqualification to hold and enjoy any office of honor, trust, or profit under the United States. So there you have it. And I think you know my opinion of all this now. Let's see what yours are. Patrick in Seaside, California. Hey, Patrick, what's on your mind?
Hi, Tom. As far as I'm concerned, I think most people would agree, caging children is a crime against humanity. I know you've said you would like to see more articles. I would like to see them somehow incorporate that. Also, obstruction of justice, which he does, it seems like, on a daily basis. The point I was going to make about additional articles is, I think Ralph Nader wrote in Common Dreams or Alternate that everything we don't charge him with potentially empowers and emboldens future presidents to commit the same crimes and atrocities, and certainly caging children is an atrocity. Do you think we should be contacting our representatives to try and encourage them to draw up additional articles?
That horse has left the barn. I agree with Ralph Nader, and that's the point that I made both earlier this week and last week when we had these conversations about impeachment, where I said that by not putting our foot down and saying no, you can't do it, it's like with little kids, I mean,
yeah.
If you let them get into the kitchen cupboard and drag the cookies out every night before bed, when you finally decide that that's not a good idea. The precedent has been set.
We do have a malignantly narcissistic, petulant 5-year-old as our president.
Yeah.
A national, international embarrassment.
Thus the analogy. But I understand the simple political reality here, and one of the points that the New York Times article about this made, which I read during the break, is that there were a number of, quote, conservative Democrats or, quote, Democrats representing conservative districts. I think there's 13 or 18 Democrats right now in the caucus who are actually, who were elected in the last election in districts that went heavily for Donald Trump, and in districts where other Republicans were elected. So, without those people, but Nancy Pelosi, I think she's got a 22 vote margin, something like that, 17 vote margin.
I have a bumper sticker slogan for Pelosi that a friend just texted me. Pelosi 2019.
Yeah, there you go.
It's got a short shelf life, but...
Yeah. But, my point is that, and the New York Times point was that Pelosi did, the one thing she's brilliant at, which is why she's such a good speaker, is not only controlling her caucus, but also understanding their needs. And I mean, she's just extraordinary. The last person in my lifetime who I thought had that kind of ability was Tip O'Neill. And what she determined... What
about Rayburn?
Say what?
What about Sam Rayburn?
I don't remember Sam Rayburn. I that was in the 60s, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I was I was too young then. I wasn't paying attention to the Congress. But in any case, my point is that she made the political calculation that even there's no defense against this, right? I mean, everybody's admitting it. Trump has launched no defense at all. And so she made the political calculation that even those people who might vote with the president on a lot of things, who might not be considered not only progressive Democrats, but they might not even be considered Democrats if you look at their voting records. Even those people in the Democratic Party will vote for this. And that this also has the greatest chance of getting some Republicans in the Senate to vote, because they're going to have to deny reality. I mean, it's just that simple.
Yeah.
The two charges are, number one, he tried to get Ukraine to interfere in our election. Nobody is disputing that, to the best of my knowledge. The closest they get is that after candidate Trump said that Russia should be able to keep Crimea, one of the legislators in Crimea published Ukraine published an article in a Ukrainian newspaper, published in Ukrainian, not even in English, saying that Donald Trump shouldn't be elected president because if he was elected president, his policy toward Ukraine and Russia would be contrary to the interests of Ukraine. Well, that's prima facie. It's right on its face. It's factual. That's not trying to interfere in our election. But that's the closest Republicans have to a rebuttal, is pointing to that guy's op-ed. And so I think that...
And yelling and throwing their feces like chimpanzees.
Right, exactly. So, I mean, I went through Walter Schaub's list, and I agree with everything on his list, and I think that that's a comprehensive list of impeachable offenses. But the simple reality, Patrick, right now is that this can get through the House, and it has the greatest chance of pulling... she's got to get 20 or 22 Republicans, I believe it's 20 Republicans, in the Senate to vote for impeachment. It takes 67 votes in the Senate. And, that's going to be a heavy lift. So, onward we go. Patrick, thanks for the call. It's great to hear from you. We'll be right back. It's 46 minutes past the hour. We're talking impeachment today.
You're listening to Thom Hartmann. Visit thomhartmann.com for audio and video archives.
It's an historic moment, a historic day in the history of the United States. Only the fourth time articles of impeachment have been drafted against a president. And welcome back. Nader in San Rafael, California. Hey, Nader, what's on your mind today? Thanks for watching Free Speech TV.
Yes, Tom, good morning. Thank you for your show, as always. You lay out the crimes by this administration in much detail, but I am worried that once this gets to the Senate, looking at how Republicans are behaving in the House,
right,
and the fact that they have a majority and they also control the Supreme Court and most of the courts, it is really not going to end favorably for the Democrats. And the timing of it, right into the spring, before election season, Trump is going to basically claim victory, say it was a hoax, just like Russia, just like all the other things. And I just don't see any way that this would end well for the Democrats. Am I missing something?
I think what you're missing is, the essential decency and intelligence of the majority of the American people. I'll give you that there's, Hillary's deplorables are out there, but they're not anywhere near as large as she was characterizing. It's not half the electorate. It's probably 20% of the population, maybe as much as 30% of the population are deeply buried, up Rupert Murdoch's backside over at Fox News. And they're not going to budge or are, listening every day to Rush Limbaugh and Sean Hannity on the radio. But setting them aside, because there's nothing else you can do, setting them aside and looking at the rest of America, she's got to begin to peel off. I mean, either if they don't impeach Trump, then what we have done is we've said we're no longer a democratic republic. We're no longer a nation of laws. It's okay for politicians to lie. It's okay for politicians to cheat. It's okay for politicians to ask foreign governments to interfere in elections to help them. It's okay for presidents to violate national security. I mean, this long list. And by at least stopping something, I think we're moving in the right direction. I get the political equation, Nader, and I am as nervous as you are that this thing might blow up in the Democrats' face and Trump may claim vindication and go on to win re-election. I think that if that happens, it will be the end of the republic. But on the other hand, if the Democrats just rolled over, if they just said, it's terrible, we're going to complain about it a lot, but we're not going to do anything, I think then the republic is over too. Right.
So
what do you do?
Okay.
Yeah.
Very good. Thank you.
And I think that,
so
by the way, Nader, if I can add, I think that Nancy Pelosi, by taking this very precision, kind of guided missile approach, just taking these two things, Trump has refused any cooperation whatsoever with the impeachment committee, and the Constitution gives the House of Representatives sole power of impeachment. So that's the obstruction, the second article. And that Trump solicited help from Ukraine. By just taking those two undisputed points and using those, I think that she has the highest chance of actually having success in the Senate. And I think in particular, if Mitt Romney can succeed in getting the Senate rules changed and we'll see, so that there can be a secret ballot, I think that he will be impeached in the Senate. If there's not a secret ballot, it's going to be much more problematic. Nader, thanks a lot for the call. And thanks for watching us on Free Speech TV. We'll be right back. Thom Hartmann here. My new book, The Hidden History of the Supreme Court and the Betrayal of America, has arrived. What if the Supreme Court did not have the power to strike down laws? Discover the hidden history of judicial review and this scam called original intent. Learn how we can save the planet by modernizing the Supreme Court. And most important, how we can democratize the Supreme Court now before it's too late. From the time Americans wake up until the time we go to bed, everything we do, touch, ingest, breathe, and use has been touched by the Supreme Court. In this book, I lay out the history of the Supreme Court from Alexander Hamilton until how the court overstepped its constitutional powers. America does not belong to the kings and queens of the court. It belongs to the people. The Hidden History of the Supreme Court and the Betrayal of America is available now in fine bookstores everywhere. Welcome back. Thom Hartmann here with you, and Kathy in Albuquerque. Hey, Kathy, what's up?
Hello, Tom. I'm a first-time caller, so I'm kind of nervous, but
thank you.
I just wanted to ask your opinion because I was really worried that I know they need to work with Trump, but to give him that big win as far as the trade deal goes,
right? I
don't know, doing the articles in impeachment and then announcing that, giving him like the biggest win. I was wondering what your opinion was about that.
I thought it was a political masterstroke. Because I thought it was a political masterstroke. The Republicans, even though you and I, Kathy, know that several hundred pieces of good, high quality, and very important legislation have passed out of the House of Representatives.
Yes,
and every week they're passing legislation. It's all going to die in the Senate, where Mitch McConnell won't even allow debates on them. We know that, but most of America doesn't know that. And the talking point over on Fox So-Called News and Right-Wing Hate Radio, and the talking point in the White House memos. I'm on their email list, and I get one that goes out to the press every single day. And one of their main talking points is that the Democrats shut down all legislative activity in order to pursue impeachment. They're not doing the work of the country.
Also.
Right. And so what this does is it just takes that talking point away from them and says, yes, we can walk and chew gum at the same time, or bubble gum if you like the way Bernie says it. And not only that, we've had several trade people on, but most recently Lori Wallach was on the show talking about this new and improved NAFTA. And her objection to it at the time was that it had a deal in it that extended patents on biologically derived pharmaceuticals for 10 additional years. In other words, it was a big wet kiss to the drug companies. But that was the bad part of it. The good part of it was that it does away with what's called Article 11, as I recall, or Chapter 11, which were these corporate courts where the judges are actually corporate lawyers, and they decide, the fate and outcome of trade violations. And they always swung in favor of corporations and against sovereign governments. That has been deleted, and the pharmaceutical part has been deleted. They've both been taken out. So now Richard Trumka, the head of the AFL-CIO, a guy who's been on this show a number of times, a guy who I respect tremendously, very smart guy. Well, I think he and Leo Gerard are the two top labor leaders in the United States. Clean as a whistle, great guys. They know what's going on. And these guys have both come. I don't know if Leo Gerard has endorsed this, but Richard Trumka came out this morning and said, "I endorse this trade deal." And so
you think that'll be? You think that's okay? That, in your opinion, you think
it is?
That's not going to affect anything? Okay. I just
so,
worry. I don't want him to get another 4 years.
Yeah, I don't either.
The Republicans are talking about it already. I've been watching Fox a little bit, and they've been saying, well, how can they be, they're just saying, how can they be for impeachment and then give them a win like this? And they're kind of spinning it.
Because they're doing what's best for the country. The best thing for the country is to impeach Trump. The best thing for the country is to repeal that terrible NAFTA deal that George Herbert Walker Bush negotiated and Bill Clinton signed, is to repeal that thing and replace it with a trade deal that actually, and it also requires that 40% of all, if you're going to import a car from Mexico, if you're going to make a car in Mexico or Canada, and we have a lot of cars in the United States that are made in both places, and car parts that are made in both places. 40% of the labor that goes into that car has to be done by people making over $16 an hour. That's a good start. So,
well, it is. Okay, and I feel a little bit better talking to you now. It was just kind of worried me. I just don't want him to get another 4 years.
No, this is why Nancy Pelosi put those things back to back. I mean, it was just incredible. Okay, we're going to announce impeachment, and then we're going to announce that we are legislating, we are doing the people's work, we can get things done. We can even work with Trump, and because trade was the one thing where Trump took the Democrats' position. The Democrats have historically been, Bill Clinton notwithstanding and Barack Obama notwithstanding, with the exception of our two last Democratic presidents, the majority of the Democratic Party has been opposed to these trade deals consistently. And
when you look at it that way, I feel so much better.
Yeah.
That was actually great.
Good.
Than to announce it that way.
I think it was a masterstroke. I think it was a masterstroke.
Yeah.
I am so blown away by Nancy Pelosi's brilliance. Kathy, thank you for the call.
She is brilliant.
Yeah,
okay, thank you so much.
You're welcome. Great talking with you. We'll be right back. We're going to talk with Julio right after the break, right? Oh, this will be interesting. Stick around.
You're listening to Thom Hartmann.
Thom Hartmann here. My new book, The Hidden History of the Supreme Court and the Betrayal of America, has arrived. What if the Supreme Court did not have the power to strike down laws? Discover the hidden history of judicial review and this scam called original intent. Learn how we can save the planet by modernizing the Supreme Court. And most important, how we can democratize the Supreme Court now before it's too late. From the time Americans wake up until the time we go to bed, everything we do, touch, ingest, breathe, and use has been touched by the Supreme Court. In this book, I lay out the history of the Supreme Court from Alexander Hamilton until how the court overstepped its constitutional powers. America does not belong to the kings and queens of the court. It belongs to the people. The Hidden History of the Supreme Court and the Betrayal of America is available now in fine bookstores everywhere. We did it! Yesterday, we were still short Delaware, Louisiana, Mississippi, Nebraska, New Jersey, Rhode Island, Tennessee, West Virginia, and Washington, D.C. for our 50-state challenge that would unlock a $10,000 gift from an anonymous donor. And thank you, donor. And every single one of those states had to be a brand new person who has never before contributed to Free Speech TV. And we did it. And thank you. Thank you to whoever you may be. I'm guessing you're watching me right now in Delaware, Louisiana, Mississippi. Well, actually, in every single state. We had to get a new person in every single state. So thank you. Thank you so much. Now, and, so that's 10 grand for yesterday. Now, what do we do with today? Right? I mean, we have a lot of work to do. We are still behind from last week. Last week was not even close to our goals, shall I say. And we really need to catch up. So please call now, 877-378-8669, and make your contribution to Free Speech TV. It's the time of year that many of our religious traditions tell us, as do the pagan religions, the Yule log and all that sort of thing, that it's the time of year to come together and be thankful for each other, for all the gifts that we have in our lives. This morning, walking into work, I'm looking up at the sky and saying just thank you for everything, for my work, my home, my family, for the people who participate in our program, for everybody and everything. And it's such, gratitude is such an important thing. And I want you to know that I am very grateful that you watch this program, that you tell other people about this program, and that you support this program if you're able to. And there's a lot of ways to support our show and the other good programs, great programs on Free Speech TV. If you have the means, call 877-378-8669 and toss some cash Free Speech TV's way. That's what we need to keep the electrons flowing, to keep the signal on the satellites. The migration to the internet has been extraordinary under the leadership of Ron and Nina, and they we've got Apple and Roku and Sling, and it's all kinds of stuff. I mean, it's really quite extraordinary. But also, so we need the cash to keep that going, but also you can support the program by letting other people know about the program. And creating a little circle of people who are, maybe on your Facebook page or Twitter or in your neighborhood or at your sewing circle or book club or at the local restaurant where you see the same people over and over, whatever it may be. Spread the word. And thank you for that, too. I'm very grateful for Free Speech TV, for all the great people who work there, for the people who work in development there, Christy and Lydia, for the people in programming, for engineering, it's just extraordinary. If you're as grateful as I am, please pick up the phone now, 877-378-8669. There are some premiums that Free Speech TV will send you in exchange for certain gift levels. With a $20 gift, you get a bumper sticker that says, "Gravity, the only law Trump hasn't broken." With a $50 gift, you get the Free Speech TV tote bag that says, "Nobody is above the law," which is sort of our slogan for the day. This morning the impeachment articles were laid out. Not sure when they're going to vote on them, but I'm guessing it'll probably be in the next week. And then it goes to the Senate, and we'll see where all this goes. But Trump thinks he's above the law. Nah, nobody's above the law. With a $120 gift, we have two things that you can pick from. Either the T-shirt that says "Never Again Is Now," or this is special, just added today. And that is, I have another book coming out in the Hidden History series. We're trying to bring out two of these books every year. They're small books. They're about 190 pages. And 5x7 in size. They fit in your pocket, and they're just, well, depends on the pocket, but like in a sports coat or in a handbag or something. And the first was The Hidden History of Guns and the Second Amendment. The second was The Hidden History of the Supreme Court, The Betrayal of America. The third book, which will be out in February, I believe, is The Hidden History of the War on Voting. And it's essentially the hidden history of the Republican war on voting. But, the publisher didn't want to put the word Republican in the title. Free Speech TV is going to be getting these books early. If you take that as a $120 gift now, you will not get the book until January or February, but you'll get it before it's in the stores. With a $240 gift, we've got the online class with me, the virtual class with a $360 gift. 3 books, Hidden History of Guns and the Second Amendment, the Supreme Court book, and The Betrayal of America, and my new book, ADHD, Hunter to Farmer's World. And with a $1,000 gift, come to Portland and hang out with us for the last hour of the show, and then we'll walk down the street and have lunch, and it'll be a good time. And I'm looking forward to that. So please call now, 877-378-8669. Thank you.
Want to connect with the show online? You can find the Thom Hartmann Program on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
It's a collection of essays edited by Sally Roche Wagner.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
Welcome back. On the line with us is Julio Rivera, the editorial director of Reactionary Times, columnist with Newsmax, The American Thinker, and townhall.com, reactionarytimes.com. You can tweet him at, it's Julio. Hey, Julio, welcome back to the program.
Thank you so much for having me, Tom.
My pleasure. So your guy, Donald Trump, just got 2 articles of impeachment laid down on him. One for basically trying to get Ukraine to trash Joe Biden, the guy that Trump figured he's going to run against, and good chance he will. And the second, that Trump refused to allow anybody from the executive branch to participate in the impeachment hearings and refused to provide the documents that Richard Nixon provided, that Bill Clinton provided, that Andrew Johnson provided, obstruction of Congress, obstruction of justice. What are your thoughts on this, Julio?
Well, I mean, my thoughts have not changed from, what they've always been. This has been ridiculous the entire time. The fact of the matter is, Tom, and let me ask you a couple of questions first off, right? Would you agree that Donald Trump is really the top diplomatic negotiator for the United States, even above Mike Pompeo, the Secretary of State? Would you agree to that?
Yeah. I mean, not that he is.
Okay. So let me ask you a question, right? So we subsidize the Ukrainian government, right? The Ukrainian government subsidizes Burisma Holdings. Burisma Holdings is a company that, quite frankly, if they were paying Hunter Biden upwards of $600,000 a year when he has no experience, knows nothing about the energy industry, that's, to me, textbook fraud. So the president had every right to request an investigation, basically to find out what's actually going on at Burisma. Should the United States be continuing to give aid to Ukraine? Now, I'm going to make another side point here.
Wait a second.
The anti-tank missiles, wait a minute. Let me just get this out and then you can say it. The anti-tank missiles, which are important to the Ukraine to keep, Soviet advancement and to keep them from, annexing any more of their land, were never withheld, and none of the actual money was ever withheld as a result of whether or not these investigations actually occurred. Then you're making the assumption that
let's stop right there, Julio, because you just laid down two statements that are simply not factual. First of all, Burisma is a private corporation owned by Ukraine, largely majority owned by
But they are subsidized in part by the Ukrainian government. They are subsidized in part.
Not in a way that has anything to do with U.S. military aid to Ukraine. So there's no relationship between our giving Ukraine missiles that can be used against Russian tanks. None of the military aid was withheld, though. Mm-hmm. There's no relationship there. So A, you're trying to change the subject to something that's completely irrelevant.
No, I'm not.
And B, and what was your second argument?
Okay, well, actually, let me just expand on something else that I wanted to lay out, because it's actually very, very, very important, within this entire matter. As far as the assumption, the articles of impeachment are based on the assumption that Donald Trump was attempting to enlist the aid of a foreign government.
Your second point was that the aid was not withheld. The aid was withheld. The aid was withheld from...
No, it wasn't.
It was withheld for several months.
The payments were made.
And
the anti-tank missiles were given. Listen, this has been a witch hunt since day one against Donald Trump. Look at the
Trump released the aid the day after. No, wait a second. Trump released the aid the day after CNN started reporting that the whistleblower had said that he was withholding the aid in an attempt to extort them. You know that, Julio. That's not a secret. Nobody's even disputing that.
Listen, the important portion of the military aid were the anti-tank missiles, and those were delivered as they were supposed to be, and there was never any interruption in that. That's literally what dissuades, anybody from advancing into Ukraine, is the anti-tank missiles, right? So that's an important point there. The other part of it is, did you not see, why do Democrats not care about the fact that Joe Biden publicly said, you've seen the C-SPAN video, everybody's seen the C-SPAN video, that he was I'm going to get on the plane in 6 hours, and if you want this $1 billion, this investigation better end. How come Democrats don't care about abuses of power within their own party?
Because Democrats know that investigation that Joe Biden, and it wasn't an investigation, it was firing the prosecutor, that had absolutely...
to prevent the investigation.
Let me finish my sentence. That had absolutely nothing to do with Burisma or Hunter Biden. Absolutely nothing to do with it. Zero. The State Department even looked into this during the Obama administration. No, if honest to God, Julio, I mean, look this up. If you think that Joe Biden and the International Monetary Fund and the European Union and the U.S. State Department and the U.S. Congress voted by Republicans and Democrats together took the position that that corrupt prosecutor in Ukraine had to go before Ukraine could be certified as being a country that was worthy of U.S. aid. If you're taking that position that had anything to do with Burisma or with Hunter Biden, you are simply operating based on something that somebody lied to you about.
No, that's not true. And the other thing, what are the Democrats doing here? Listen, you guys, the Democratic House has spent the better part of this entire year. In the beginning of the year, it was all the investigation, all the hearings with Comey and related to the Mueller report. The last couple of months, it's been this impeachment thing. Are you guys not interested in legislating and improving the lives of the constituents? These legislators are hell-bent on one thing and one thing alone, and that's getting Donald Trump out of power, because Democrats are obsessed with power. You guys don't even really care about the issues that you campaign on. If there was never, this is the most obvious example of it, is what happened last year in Virginia when you had Northam, right? Northam, the blackface scandal. You guys care about social justice.
That's a state government. We're talking federal government here.
No, but it's systematic of the Democrat Party, because the fact of the matter is,
it's the Democratic Party.
The Attorney General,
Julio.
The Attorney General,
it's the Democratic Party.
The Attorney General and the Lieutenant Governor of that state were embroiled in scandals, and you guys didn't want to turn over the power to the Republican leader of the Virginia legislature. This is only about retaining power. It's not about what's right or wrong or what's
you could go off on the Virginia Democrats all you want. And frankly, you'll find some Democrats who will agree with you, but that has nothing to do with this. I'm assuming
it's
that you really.
Let
me just finish my damn sentence, would you? Julio, hold on.
Mm-hmm.
I'm assuming your argument here is that Congress had basically suspended all functions in order to direct their attention to impeachment.
Not all, but many.
I'm assuming that you are then unaware of the fact that over 300 pieces of legislation, including comprehensive legislation to protect our elections, ratification or whatever the word is for the Violence Against Women's Act, gun control legislation, tax legislation, pharmaceutical pricing legislation, has over 270 substantive pieces of legislation, and have
what are the Democrats going to do?
An additional 30 or 40 that are basically naming post offices have passed out of the House of Representatives, and Mitch McConnell is refusing to allow even a discussion on them. And the ultimate one, of course, is NAFTA. Now, the Democrats in the House of Representatives, working with Donald Trump and Robert Lighthizer, who's been a guest on this program many times, worked out a replacement for that god-awful NAFTA bill that gets rid of Chapter 11 or Article 11 with the kangaroo courts that mandates that labor has to be 40% of the labor in a car has to be done at $16 an hour, that increases the standards for environmental quality controls, that is supported now by Richard Trumka and Donald Trump. That was also announced this morning. So your argument is just nonsense. You still there? What happened to Julio? Oh, he lost his phone? Oh, well. Julio, I'm sorry. I can't hear you. Oh, you're going to try? Yeah, his phone dropped. You're going to try Skype? We're going to try Skype audio here and see if that works. It looks like Julio's trying to dial me back, though. Yeah, see, he's in. Yeah, there he is. He's dialing us back, and I will grab that call. Julio.
Yes.
Hey, you're back. Thank you very much. So anyhow, I just blew up your argument. I don't know if you heard the whole thing, but I mean, they announced NAFTA this morning. So how can you continue to say that?
No, there are. Listen, but still. You've got these first-time legislators. They made all these promises to their constituents. They're not delivering on everything that their concern is not to legislate at where they should be.
There's a bunch of Green New Deal legislation that has passed the House.
There's been reauthorizations of bills. There's been money that's been appropriated that was already allocated for certain things. There's some business as usual is moving along, but the obsession here is to try to retain or to try to regain power. That's literally, listen, 266,000 jobs.
Julio, we have a minute and 10 seconds.
The president not doing a good job?
Hang on just a second.
Let me ask you a question.
We have a minute and 10 seconds before we're going to hit a hard break that I can't control. Quick question for you.
Okay.
Do you think, as many Democrats fear, that if Trump is impeached in the House and not convicted in the Senate, that will help him get reelected?
Donald Trump is going to win regardless because you guys don't have any candidates.
Well, he can't win if he gets kicked out.
The American people, Joe Biden. Listen, I don't care what the polls say. The polls said, the day before Election Day 2016, that Hillary Clinton had a probability of winning the election of probably like 99%, and she lost. So, I mean,
well, she won by 3 million votes.
Donald Trump is wildly popular. He's not getting ignored at diners in Iowa. I mean, this is a guy that packs the House, from city to city all over this country and all the battleground states. He's packing the arenas.
I get it.
People want to vote for Donald Trump. They want the economy to stay strong. This is ridiculous. This is literally about Donald Trump
so I guess my question though was
the FBI
hang on, I got it. But my question was, do you think that this is going to help or hurt Trump?
It's Donald Trump wins regardless. It probably helps him. Maybe it helps him. I don't know. It doesn't help the American people.
See, I think it's going to hurt him, but I think it's going to
solve the division in the country.
Yeah, well, the division in the country is being heavily, aggressively promoted, I think, by Donald Trump. I mean, we've never had a president call the press the enemy of the people. We've never had a president, call, refuse to cooperate with Congress. So
listen. The people on his staff could have went and they could have testified, and there was one person that did testify. The rest of them could have showed up and pled the fifth. It doesn't matter. Donald Trump didn't force anybody to do anything.
No, actually they did. The office of the president's Office of Legal Counsel wrote letters to all these guys saying you can't testify. The ones who did defied him, but. Julio, thanks for dropping by. Julio Rivera, editorial director of Reactionary Times. Hang on just a second.
Is the Thom Hartmann Program.
ReactionaryTimes.com is the website. The Twitter handle is, it's Julio. Julio, good talking to you. Thanks for dropping by.
Thank you, Tom.
Yeah. Talk to you again. And welcome back. Thom Hartmann here with you and Dennis in Aptos, California. Hey, Dennis, what's on your mind today? Thanks for watching Free Speech TV. Oh, Dennis just dropped off the line. Sometimes when people try to, grab their phone, oh my God, I'm on the air. boom, off it goes. Kim in Olympia, Washington. Hey, Kim, what's on your mind?
Hey, Tom. I'm about how can we, the citizens, support the impeachment. Right now, we have polls, and I'm sure people are knocking polls all the time, but it's an indicator to we, the American people. I am sick and tired of hearing guests like yourself. I mean, it's futile. We need to stay focused. And every time we bring up Biden's name, it just gets, oh, yeah, Biden, 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 instead of what Trump was trying to do. So
but we are not going to single-handedly stop that, Kim, and we do need to know what the other side is saying so that we can formulate responses to them, whether it's over the Christmas dinner table or whether it's at work or whether it's at church or whatever it may be. We need to have those conversations. And
I understand that, Tom.
And not only that. We have, if your original point was you want to support impeachment, if you want to support impeachment, the telephone number for the Congressional Switchboard is 202-224-3121, and you need to be calling Republicans and any Democrats that you think might be, wavering, and telling them that please support the impeachment of this president. Now, I realize you're in Washington State. You got 2 Democratic senators.
Right.
I don't know if there is any. I'm guessing there's a few parts of Washington State that have Republican congressmen or women, but I don't think Olympia is one of them.
Eastern Washington.
Yeah.
And what I want to do, my bottom line here, Tom, is to challenge every single one of your listeners every single day to take some action that supports impeachment. Either call your congressman or take the courage to call or talk to somebody who may not really understand impeachment and all that's going on here.
Yeah.
Support each other.
I'm with you.
That's
I'm
what
with
I
you.
called about is
And you said it very well. Kim, thank you very much. Mark in Valley, Washington. Hey, Mark, what's up?
Well, I'm kind of piggybacking on the last call. I think that all our callers, that all the people listening, you need to start calling on a campaign of shame. I called McMorris Rogers and told her that her and the man that was answering the phone, that by not speaking out, they're implicit in the death of that 16-year-old child in that camp. And that the death camps in Nazi Germany didn't start out that way. They morphed into them over 4 years.
Right.
And we're seeing the same thing happening here. We need to shame these people. They need to feel some fire under their bellies for what they're doing.
Right. So you're suggesting that people should be calling their legislators about kids in cages. And I completely agree with you on that. I do think, though, that impeachment should be part of the conversation. Although, it's easy to.
I called Mitch McConnell and told I actually talked to a person, didn't get to leave a message there, and I said that he's a disgrace. I mean, he's not acting like an American patriot or citizen. He's acting more like an agent of Moscow, and that's why he got the nickname Moscow Mitch.
Wow. Did you call his federal office or one of his state offices?
Yeah, I called his federal office, and I actually got to talk to a person. I was amazed.
Yeah, me too. Well, good on you, Mark. Yeah, this is the time, and easy activism is picking up the phone and making some phone calls. Mark, thank you very much for the call. Appreciate it. Once again, that phone number is 202-224 or 225-3121. 202-224-3121. We'll be right back. Thom Hartmann here. My new book, The Hidden History of the Supreme Court and the Betrayal of America, has arrived. What if the Supreme Court did not have the power to strike down laws? Discover the hidden history of judicial review and this scam called original intent. Learn how we can save the planet by modernizing the Supreme Court. And most important, how we can democratize the Supreme Court now before it's too late. From the time Americans wake up until the time we go to bed, everything we do, touch, ingest, breathe, and use has been touched by the Supreme Court. In this book, I lay out the history of the Supreme Court from Alexander Hamilton until how the court overstepped its constitutional powers. America does not belong to the kings and queens of the court. It belongs to the people. The Hidden History of the Supreme Court and the Betrayal of America is available now in fine bookstores everywhere. Our members-only video for the week. Welcome back. Thom Hartmann here with you, and Nina in McAlpin, Florida. Hey, Nina, what's up?
Hey, Tom. How you doing?
I'm well. What's on your mind?
I had a question about the Burisma investigation.
Mm-hmm.
They keep talking about the 2020, but isn't it really the 2016 investigation that they're talking about?
No, in 2016, Ukraine had nothing to do with the 2016 election. The Republicans say Ukraine tried to interfere with the election. You say, well, what's the proof of that? And they say, well, this one guy in Ukraine, and I don't recall if he was a legislator. I think he was a legislator. He might have been a government official. Published an op-ed in the Ukrainian newspaper saying that Hillary Clinton should be elected president instead of Donald Trump because Donald Trump said that it's okay for Russia to keep Crimea. Okay, so I mean that's their only evidence, and that was published in Ukraine in a Ukrainian newspaper in the Ukrainian language. So yeah, that's all they've got. In 2016, the election interference was done by Russia, and according to Seth Abramson, also by the United Arab Emirates, by Saudi Arabia, by partisan parties inside Israel. And there was one other country involved in that, in one of the Middle Eastern countries, that Seth Abramson lays out in his book, Proof of Conspiracy. So that was the election interference where they were buying Facebook ads, they were penetrating the voting systems of our various, voting areas. I mean, all this kind of stuff, and also, they hacked the DNC and they turned the outcome of that, the output of that over to WikiLeaks and specifically with the purpose of interfering in the election. So the 2016 election was about Russian interference. Trump tried to block the investigation of that. He fired James Comey. James Comey. That was his first attempt to block it. Then he fired Neil McCabe. And it just continued from there. And the Mueller report contains 10 specific instances of obstruction of justice that Trump could be charged with under an impeachment. The Nancy Pelosi and the Democrats chose not to use any of that because they didn't want to go back and relitigate that. They wanted to use stuff that was just right, present, front and center, no dispute. Everybody agrees. Even the Republicans agree. Donald Trump has refused to turn over one piece of paper or one witness to Congress in their impeachment investigation. So they're keeping it very much focused on his attempts this last year, in the last 12 months, to corrupt the election that's going to happen next year. It's all about 2020, Nina. The 2016 election, that's the Mueller report. Nina, I'm sorry I'm out of time. I got to run. But thank you for the call. And thank you for watching Free Speech TV. It's 28 minutes past the hour.
You're listening to the Thom Hartmann Program. Call 202-808-9925.
We'll be back with more of the news of the day and your calls in just a moment. Bill Barr is still dissing the FBI. That's mind-boggling. We did it. Yesterday, we were still short Delaware, Louisiana, Mississippi, Nebraska, New Jersey, Rhode Island, Tennessee, West Virginia, and Washington, D.C. for our 50-state challenge that would unlock a $10,000 gift from an anonymous donor. And thank you, donor. And every single one of those states had to be a brand new person who has never before contributed to Free Speech TV. And we did it. And thank you. Thank you to whoever you may be. I'm guessing you're watching me right now in Delaware, Louisiana, Mississippi. Well, actually, in every single state. We had to get a new person in every single state. So thank you. Thank you so much. Now, so that's 10 grand for yesterday. Now, what do we do with today? Right? I mean, we have a lot of work to do. We are still behind from last week. Last week was not even close to our goals, shall I say. And we really need to catch up. So please call now, 877-378-8669, and make your contribution to Free Speech TV. It's the time of year that Many of our religious traditions tell us, as do the pagan religions, you know, the Yule log and all that sort of thing, that it's the time of year to come together and be thankful for each other, for all the gifts that we have in our lives. This morning, walking into work, I'm looking up at the sky and saying just thank you for everything, for my work, my home, my family, for the people who participate in our program, for everybody and everything. And it's such, you know, gratitude is such an important thing. And I want you to know that I am very grateful that you watch this program, that you tell other people about this program, and that you support this program if you're able to. And there's a lot of ways to support our show and the other good programs, great programs on Free Speech TV. If you have the means, call 877-378-8669 and toss some cash Free Speech TV's way. That's what we need to keep the electrons flowing, to keep the signal on the satellites. The migration to the internet has been extraordinary under the leadership of Ron and Nina, and they you know, we've got Apple and Roku and Sling, and it's all kinds of stuff. I mean, it's really quite extraordinary. But also, you know, so we need the cash to keep that going, but also you can support the program by letting other people know about the program. And you know, creating a little circle of people who are, you know, maybe on your Facebook page or Twitter or in your neighborhood or at your sewing circle or book club or at the local restaurant where you see the same people over and over, whatever it may be. Spread the word. And thank you for that, too. I'm very grateful for Free Speech TV, for all the great people who work there. For the people who work in development there, Christy and Lydia, for the people in programming, for engineering, I mean, it's just extraordinary. If you're as grateful as I am, please pick up the phone now, 877-378-8669. There are some premiums that Free Speech TV will send you in exchange for certain gift levels. With a $20 gift, you get a bumper sticker that says, "Gravity, the only law Trump hasn't broken." With a $50 gift, you get the Free Speech TV tote bag that says "Nobody is above the law," which is sort of our slogan for the day. You know, this morning the impeachment articles were laid out. Not sure when they're going to vote on them, but I'm guessing it'll probably be in the next week. And then it goes to the Senate, and we'll see where all this goes. But Trump thinks he's above the law. Nah, nobody's above the law. With a $120 gift, we have two things that you can pick from. Either the T-shirt that says "Never Again Is Now," or this is special, just added today. And that is, I have another book coming out in the Hidden History series. We're trying to bring out two of these books every year. They're small books. They're about 190 pages. And, you know, 5 by 7 in size. They fit in your pocket, and, you know, they're just, well, depends on the pocket, but like in a sports coat or in a handbag or something. And the first was the Hidden History of Guns and the Second Amendment. The second was the Hidden History of the Supreme Court, the Betrayal of America. The third book, which will be out in February, I believe, is the Hidden History of the War on Voting. And it's essentially the hidden history of the Republican war on voting. But, you know, the publisher didn't want to put the word Republican in the title. Free Speech TV is going to be getting these books early. If you take that as a $120 gift now, you will not get the book until January or February, but you'll get it before it's in the stores. With a $240 gift, we've got the online class with me, the virtual class with a $360 gift. 3 books, Hidden History of Guns and the Second Amendment, the Supreme Court book, and the Betrayal of America, and my new book, ADHD, Hunter in a Farmer's World. And with a $1,000 gift, come to Portland and hang out with us for the last hour of the show, and then we'll walk down the street and have lunch, and it'll be a good time. And I'm looking forward to that. So please call now, 877-378-8669. Thank you. Thom Hartmann here. My new book, The Hidden History of the Supreme Court and the Betrayal of America, has arrived. What if the Supreme Court did not have the power to strike down laws? Discover the hidden history of judicial review and this scam called original intent. Learn how we can save the planet by modernizing the Supreme Court. And most important, how we can democratize the Supreme Court now before it's too late. From the time Americans wake up until the time we go to bed, everything we do, touch, ingest, breathe, and use has been touched by the Supreme Court. In this book, I lay out the history of the Supreme Court from Alexander Hamilton until how the court overstepped its constitutional powers. America does not belong to the kings and queens of the court. It belongs to the people. The Hidden History of the Supreme Court and the Betrayal of America is available now in fine bookstores everywhere. Welcome back. Thom Hartmann here with you. So an interesting take. This I caught this over at Daily Kos from Joan McCarter. And she was talking about how the Senate, Mitch McConnell, is now saying, okay, you guys in the House, you can have your vote before Christmas, you can have your vote tomorrow. But we're not going to do anything in the Senate until after the first of the year. He says, impeachment is a huge issue. Actually, this is Dianne Feinstein. She said, impeachment is a huge issue. I don't think we should rush into it. Even Rand Paul is agreeing with that. But let's see. John Cornyn, the last thing we want over here is to be held over Christmas. I can't imagine you will object to that. It's interesting that Dianne Feinstein is saying yes. I don't know what other Democrats are saying, but basically the thinking is that the people who will be hurt the most by this impeachment hearing in the Senate running through January and possibly even February, those people are Cory Booker, Amy Klobuchar, Elizabeth Warren, and Bernie Sanders, 4 senators who are running for president on the Democratic side. And if they can't get out there and campaign, particularly leading up to Super Tuesday but also Iowa and New Hampshire, the first votes start in February. If they can't get out there and campaign, then that increases the probability that Joe Biden will be the guy who's the nominee for the party, and which is clearly what I think Donald Trump wants right now. Because, look at my conversation with Julio just a moment ago. Julio's a well-informed guy, and I'm assuming he's telling me what he actually believes. Now, I might be wrong, but to the best of my knowledge, Julio's never told me a lie that he knew was a lie. I think, he just lives in that right-wing bubble. And I think a lot of Americans do. You talk to these people who are, gung-ho Republicans and watch Fox News and all that kind of stuff, and, that's what's going on. So anyhow, to continue with your thoughts on this, Jeffrey in Columbus, Ohio. Hey, Jeffrey, what's up?
Hey, good afternoon, Tom. Hey, I have some thoughts. I know that the impeachment's highly political, but play with me for a minute here. Imagine if the polls that are being taken are skewed. And what I'm saying is that I noticed a dramatic difference in the amount of telemarketers and just people calling my phone line and then not answering it when there's a big political issue coming down, because we all know the politicians live and die by these polls. So if somebody, let's say the older generations are sitting there on their landlines, a lot of the Trumpers probably, the younger generations, like my son is a millennial, he's not answering his phone.
Right.
So
neither am I, and I'm one of those older guys.
Yeah, I am too, but we're a little more savvy than most, right?
Yeah.
So I brought this up to CBS a few weeks ago, and I noticed that they took and interviewed 100 people, and they got a totally different poll than everybody else. It was off by 10 or 12% from what the other polls were.
Right.
And then all the other polls caught up quickly to it. But they just interviewed people. And I think that, there's a silent bunch of people out there that are a younger generation who got cell phones, got the information of who's calling them, don't answer their phones, don't waste their time, and are not giving input on the impeachment whatsoever.
Right.
And it is concerning because, as we know, the politicians live and die by these polls. And think about this, and I hate to think about it after the Russian conspiracies, but think if even these I won't say the first one, the R, but the think tank and some of these other groups, that start with A and end with X, are paying, these groups across the seas to just run these phone numbers on people that they know would give bad poll results to them, just to alienate them so they won't answer their phone.
Yeah.
It's just a thought.
Yeah, I don't see a grand conspiracy here. What I see is a change in technology that has produced a change in behavior that's making it difficult for the polling companies to figure out what public opinion actually is. And I mean, when you figure, let's say that the polling companies, and I've never gotten a call from a polling company, so I frankly don't know. But if I was running a polling company, I would configure my caller ID so that when it rings on somebody's phone, where possible, it says, I'm calling from the Gallup organization, or this is a Gallup poll call, or something like that. But then you're going to get the people who are not so busy, right? The people who are willing to be polled. And that's skewing your poll right off the bat. So,
and that's the 1%ers, too, because they're the ones sitting at the house, with their private businesses.
No, I don't think the 1%ers are answering the phone at all. They've got, Margie in the front office answering the phone, or Bill or whatever it may be.
Yeah.
And so and if it's their personal phone, they're probably not. So, but the bottom line is the ultimate poll, of course, is what happens at the ballot box. And increasingly, we can't even trust that. I don't know if you saw this story last week about this place down in Florida where not a single Democratic vote registered on an electronic voting machine, and it turned out the Democrat actually won. The good news is that those voting machines produced a paper ballot, a paper trail. But, it's pretty bad stuff. Jeffrey, I got to move along, but thank you for the call. Matthew in Gill Shores, Alabama. Hey, Matthew, what's up?
Hi, Tom. It's Gulf Shores, Alabama.
Oh, Gulf Shores. I'm sorry.
Yes. Yep. Thank you for everything you do, by the way. You're a service to this country. I've been listening to you for a long time, and first time I'm calling. The reason I'm calling is I was sent, my mother sent me a copy of a tweet by Anil Katal. He's a professor at Georgetown University.
Yeah, he's on TV a lot.
And I'd like to paraphrase it real quick for me.
Mm-hmm.
I had not heard the point that he made, but he basically says that if the Senate messes with the trial in any way, or they fail to impeach the president, and heaven forbid he's reelected, then there is no double jeopardy for impeachment, and that he can be impeached again after 2020 for any number of things that, like you listed earlier on your show.
Yeah. That's correct.
Which is a great
I would expect that, by the way.
Okay. Well, he finalized with the senators know this. I wish he'd have said one more sentence and kind of rounded out his point, because I wanted to ask you possibly what you thought about that and what his point was, because he's implying that the senators know this and they may do their job actually and impeach him the first time? Or is it something else?
It's a good question. On TV this morning, Claire McCaskill, the retired senator, actually she lost the election, I believe, made the point that Mitch McConnell doesn't give a rat's patootie about Donald Trump. Other than, he would like to have a Republican president to feed him conservative judges, but if he gets a Democratic president, he'll just obstruct for another 4 years. The only thing that Mitch McConnell really cares about is that he is the Senate Majority Leader, and in order to be the Majority Leader, he has to have a majority, which means he has to have more than 50 senators. And right now, he's got vulnerable Republican senators in Iowa, North Carolina, Colorado, Arizona, and Maine. Susan Collins in Maine, Kyrsten Sinema in Arizona, Cory Gardner in Colorado, Tom Tillis in North Carolina, and Joni Ernst in Iowa, if I'm remembering correctly, who those senators are from those states. And all of them could easily lose. So, and if the evidence that's presented in the trial, and the trial will be heavily watched, and this another good reason why Nancy Pelosi has produced a very narrow bill of impeachment here. If the evidence presented at that trial causes a majority of the people in those 5 states, Iowa, North Carolina, Colorado, Arizona, and Maine, to conclude that their senators should vote to impeach, Mitch McConnell will allow that to happen, in Claire McCaskill's opinion. And because that will help them get reelected in those states. And if that happens, it doesn't mean that Trump gets removed from office. That's not 20 senators. That's only 5. But what that will mean is, and I would add to that list, Utah, Mitt Romney, which would be 6. Then you would have a bipartisan impeachment, a removal vote in the Senate. And frankly, I think Justin Amash should have stayed in the Republican Party so that Nancy Pelosi could say that she's going to have a bipartisan impeachment vote in the House. So, the politics of it and the optics of it are all kind of up in the air, and that's a lot of what's being negotiated right now. Donald Trump is also apparently very seriously upset, angry that Mitch McConnell said he's not going to take up the impeachment issue until after January. Trump wants it put to bed before Christmas. He wants a quick trial and a quick vote before Christmas, and Mitch McConnell's saying, no, it's not going to happen. And so, get ready for more crazy stuff. But anyhow, Matthew, thanks for the call. Good stuff. Matt in Austin, Texas. Hey, Matt, what's on your mind today?
Yeah, I have can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. I have something that has occurred to me recently, and I just wanted to run it by you. I have been unable to understand for these 3.5 years how 45 million people have been able to just blindly believe everything this man says and not have any resemblance to fact.
Where are you getting the 45 million people number from? He only got 33 million votes.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought, well, maybe 40 million I've heard support him.
Okay.
I don't know.
Yeah.
But let's say that 40 million people support him.
Okay. Yeah, I won't
today.
dispute that.
How can they support him? And I thought last night I was with I said, how can they support him? What kind of families were they raised in? How were they raised that they can support a liar constantly?
Matt, try something for me. Do you have the ability to watch Fox News?
Oh, I watch it all the time. I mean, not all the time.
That's the answer to your question right there. I mean, I was just going to say, please watch Fox News all day, every day for 3 days, and then call me back.
Okay, well, wait 1 second, because I do watch it. And I have been communicating with a guy who is a millionaire, who has 2 AK-47s, who is a Trump supporter, and he cannot accept anything that goes against the Trump line. And he's not a stupid man. He built his own business and sold it. So I tried to think, why would he do such a thing? And I remember the one thing he told me is that he grew up sharecropping with his uncle, and he learned that a poor man can never give you a job, only a rich man. And so, because he was a sharecropper, I'm wondering how many of these people that support Trump were raised in families where they got fear put into them when they were very, very young, like 3 or 4 years old.
Yeah,
and
we know that people who experience a lot of fear are almost always on the conservative end of the spectrum. Number one, and number
right.
two, I would tell you, Matt, there are a hell of a lot of white racists out there who are totally down with Donald Trump's immigration policies and his trashing, people of color and inner cities and stuff like that, and they're just not going to tell you that to your face. It's not acceptable anymore. So, Matt, I got to run. Thanks for the call.
Listening to Thom Hartmann. Visit ThomHartmann.com for audio and video archives.
It's coming up on 48 minutes past the hour. We'll be right back. And welcome back. Kathy in Tacoma, Washington. Hey, Kathy, what's up?
Hey, Tom. Thanks for taking my call again.
My pleasure. Thanks for watching us on Facebook.
Actually, I'm Free Speech TV is easier to get to, which reminds me, I'm a disabled volunteer citizen journalist on Facebook, even though a lot of kids, especially young people, are not on Facebook anymore. Mm-hmm. But I just wanted to say about the impeachment, I think the Democrats are handling it well.
I do,
Schiff is brilliant. Yeah, and keeping it simple gives them less areas to throw mud at. I wanted to tell you also that the major networks, all of them in Seattle yesterday, censored the afternoon session, which was all the members questioning. There are many members of color, as you know, on judiciary, and many women. And I just thought it was weird. I'd like to hear other callers to see if that happened on networks elsewhere, or if it was a Seattle thing. And
the local stations don't control the networks, so it was probably a national thing.
Yeah, most of them are owned by Sinclair or Tegna or whoever, you know.
Yeah.
So we tonight at City Council in Tacoma is going to be big. There's a climate emergency resolution that's going to be presented. Tacoma is interesting because this guy Gordon Sondland, speaking of impeachment, he's like in the middle, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he owns the Hotel Murano here in Tacoma.
Oh.
And yeah, I mean, and I know he owns hotels in Portland as well. I think there have been some protests there, right?
Yeah, that's where he started. Yeah.
Yeah, and Rudy, I mean, my God, you know what? I'm looking. You know, I'm on Facebook, Kathy with a K, Lawhon, and he was involved in Venezuela. Apparently, even maybe Levin Igor. Mm-hmm. And, they've had a coup over there going on.
Oh, I know.
And
I know.
Also, they just happened, Tom.
It is absolutely terrible. Kathy, I need to let another caller in here. Thank you very much for the call. Bob in Tahlequah, Oklahoma. Hey, Bob, what's up?
Well, I just wanted to get in a comment.
Okay.
In the midst of all this line drawing and partisan politics, I think we need to keep in mind that hope is alive, and hope is in sustainable practices on the planet where we live. It goes on regardless of this political gaming. It goes on. It's not reported. There's not much that's brought up, I watch fairly closely, even in panels knowledgeable, wise people having to do with the economy and natural resources.
I'm very hopeful, Bob.
There's not much in the media and on free speech.
I think it's all over right now. You're just not identifying it right. What you're looking at right now, Bob, is the country's immune system. That's what impeachment is. That's the immune system rising up and saying, we're going to fight back against this infection.
Well, if you want hope, you're going to have to rely on community relationships and sustainable practices.
Yeah. Okay. I agree with you on all those things. Thanks a lot for the call. And for watching us on Free Speech TV there in Tahlequah, Oklahoma. We'll be right back. It's, 8 minutes before the hour. Stick around. Welcome back. Thom Hartmann here with you. Brent in Kansas City, Missouri. Hey, Brent, what's on your mind today?
Are you familiar with Texas Hold'em, right?
I've played the game. It's for people who don't know, it's a type of poker. Yeah.
Yeah. So basically, the Republicans are the guys at the table that are always blowing smoke, and I feel like the Democrats have just been slow playing and check raising them the whole time. The flop and the Turner here, and now we've got all our chips in, and we're waiting for the river. And my question is it possible, because I don't know very much about impeachment, but is it possible that they delay the vote in the House so that it can't go to the Senate until after the election in hopes of picking up extra seats?
No, it's not possible. I mean, it's technically, legally possible, but Nancy Pelosi has said that she wants to get this vote done before Christmas. I would be surprised, frankly, if the vote doesn't happen. I would not be surprised if the vote happens this week or is scheduled for early next week. That would be my guess. What she's doing right now, and Steny Hoyer is actually probably doing the biggest share of the work because that's his job as the whip, is literally going around to every single member of the Democratic caucus and saying, how are you going to vote on this? And when would you like the vote to be held? Do you want this right away or do you want it next week? But they're not going to let this happen until after. They're not. The House is not going to postpone it until after Christmas, and certainly not for a year. Or more than 11 months into the next election. And similarly, Mitch McConnell will have his time in the Senate. He's going to apparently drag it out as long as he can, probably to try to hurt anybody who might oppose Joe Biden, because they think that they have succeeded in dirtying up Joe Biden. We'll see, and the polls are not asking that question. That's the one thing. The polls that show 30% of Democrats would vote for Joe Biden, and roughly 40% of Democrats would vote for either Bernie or Hillary or Elizabeth Warren. And then you got another 10-15% of the Democrats who are solidly for some other moderate candidate. So basically it's the moderates versus the progressives, and it's about 50-50. But I'm not seeing any national polling that shows whether people think that Joe Biden is corrupt, which would indicate whether or not the Republican smear job has worked. I'm guessing it hasn't worked with Democrats, but the question is, has it worked with independents? And also, how Trump is doing, with this. And I'm not seeing good, reliable, and consistent polling on that either. So, these are all things that might affect it. Brent, thanks a lot for the call. Lamont in Indianapolis. Hey, Lamont, what's up?
Hey, Tom, I was just wondering, how come any Democrats during these hearings haven't pointed out that during the time when Joe Biden did this to get this guy, this prosecutor ousted, and his son was there, that the Republicans had control of the House and the Senate, and that why is it that they didn't look at it then that they're trying to bring it up now?
Oh, that's a good question. The problem with that question, Lamont, is that it's logical and rational.
Right. I mean, somebody should just, in the hearings yesterday, I would have asked the Republican attorney that.
Right.
You mean to tell me that Matt Gaetz, Jim Jordan, the great Devin Nunes didn't see this out in the open? Because it wasn't hidden that Hunter Biden was working there, right?
Yeah.
Everybody knew he was working there.
Yeah, no, it wasn't.
So they had control of the House and the Senate. Why didn't they look at it then?
Yeah. Excellent question. Lamont, thank you. You put your finger on a good one. Kat in Independence, Oregon. Hey, Kat, what's up?
Hi, Tom. Can you hear me all right?
Just fine.
Okay,
but
good.
Hey, Kat, I'm going to put you on hold because I just looked at the clock and I have 30 seconds, and that's not fair to you. So let me just put you on hold, and we'll pick this up. We'll pick up this conversation on the other side of the break. Some of the things to keep an eye on. Keep an eye on Joni Ernst. Keep an eye on Tom Tillis. Keep an eye on Cory Gardner. Keep an eye on Kyrsten Sinema. Keep an eye on Susan Collins in Maine. And keep an eye on Mitt Romney. These Republican senators and the way that they respond to this battle going on right now between Mitch McConnell, who wants to postpone and slow walk the whole impeachment trial, and Donald Trump, who wants to get it over and done with so that he can go into campaign mode as quickly as possible, is going to get real interesting. And here's a question for you we can talk about in the next hour. Is McConnell going to slow walk this? And if so, why? Is it just to screw with the Democratic senators who are running for election, or is there another agenda here?
You're listening to Thom Hartmann.
We say fight back!
Want to connect with the show online? You can find the Thom Hartmann Program on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
Thom Hartmann here. My new book, The Hidden History of the Supreme Court and the Betrayal of America, has arrived. What if the Supreme Court did not have the power to strike down laws? Discover the hidden history of judicial review and this scam called original intent. Learn how we can save the planet by modernizing the Supreme Court. And most important, how we can democratize the Supreme Court now before it's too late. From the time Americans wake up until the time we go to bed, everything we do, touch, ingest, breathe, and use has been touched by the Supreme Court. In this book, I lay out the history of the Supreme Court from Alexander Hamilton until how the court overstepped its constitutional powers. America does not belong to the kings and queens of the court. It belongs to the people. The hidden history of the Supreme Court and the betrayal of America is available now in fine bookstores everywhere. We did it! Yesterday, we were still short Delaware, Louisiana, Mississippi, Nebraska, New Jersey, Rhode Island, Tennessee, West Virginia, and Washington, D.C. for our 50-state challenge that would unlock a $10,000 gift from an anonymous donor. And thank you, donor. And every single one of those states had to be a brand new person who has never before contributed to Free Speech TV. And we did it. And thank you. Thank you to whoever you may be. I'm guessing you're watching me right now in Delaware, Louisiana, Mississippi. Well, actually, in every single state. We had to get a new person in every single state. So thank you. Thank you so much. Now, and, so that's 10 grand for yesterday. Now, what do we do with today? Right? I mean, we have a lot of work to do. We are still behind from last week. Last week was not even close to our goals, shall I say. And we really need to catch up. So please call now, 877-378-8669, and make your contribution to Free Speech TV. It's the time of year that many of our religious traditions tell us, as do the pagan religions, the Yule log and all that sort of thing, that it's the time of year to come together and be thankful for each other, for all the gifts that we have in our lives. This morning, walking into work, I'm looking up at the sky and saying just thank you for everything, for my work, my home, my family, for the people who participate in our program, for everybody, and everything. And it's such, gratitude is such an important thing. And I want you to know that I am very grateful that you watch this program, that you tell other people about this program, and that you support this program if you're able to. And there's a lot of ways to support our show and the other good programs, great programs on Free Speech TV. If you have the means, call 877-378-8669 and toss some cash Free Speech TV's way. That's what we need to keep the electrons flowing, to keep the signal on the satellites. The migration to the internet has been extraordinary under the leadership of Ron and Nina, and they we've got Apple and Roku and Sling, and it's all kinds of stuff. I mean, it's really quite extraordinary. But also, so we need the cash to keep that going, but also you can support the program by letting other people know about the program. And creating a little circle of people who are, maybe on your Facebook page or Twitter or in your neighborhood or at your sewing circle or book club or at the local restaurant where you see the same people over and over, whatever it may be. Spread the word. And thank you for that, too. I'm very grateful for Free Speech TV, for all the great people who work there. For the people who work in development there, Christy and Lydia, for the people in programming, for engineering, it's just extraordinary. If you're as grateful as I am, please pick up the phone now, 877-378-8669. There are some premiums that Free Speech TV will send you in exchange for certain gift levels. With a $20 gift, you get a bumper sticker that says, "Gravity, the only law Trump hasn't broken." With a $50 gift, you get the Free Speech TV tote bag that says "Nobody is above the law," which is sort of our slogan for the day. This morning the impeachment articles were laid out. Not sure when they're going to vote on them, but I'm guessing it'll probably be in the next week. And then it goes to the Senate, and we'll see where all this goes. But Trump thinks he's above the law. Nah, nobody's above the law. With a $120 gift, we have two things that you can pick from. Either the T-shirt that says "Never Again Is Now," or this is special, just added today. And that is, I have another book coming out in the Hidden History series. We're trying to bring out 2 of these books every year. They're small books. They're about 190 pages, and 5 by 7 in size. They fit in your pocket, and they're just, well, depends on the pocket, but like in a sports coat or in a handbag or something. And the first was the Hidden History of Guns and the Second Amendment. The second was the Hidden History of the Supreme Court, the Betrayal of America. The third book, which will be out in February, I believe, is the Hidden History of the War on Voting. And it's essentially the hidden history of the Republican war on voting. But, the publisher didn't want to put the word Republican in the title. Free Speech TV is going to be getting these books early. If you take that as a $120 gift now, you will not get the book until January or February, but you'll get it before it's in the stores. With a $240 gift, we've got the online class with me, the virtual class with a $360 gift. 3 books, Hidden History of Guns and the Second Amendment, the Supreme Court book, and the Betrayal of America, and my new book, ADHD, Hunter to Farmer's World. And with a $1,000 gift, come to Portland and hang out with us for the last hour of the show, and then we'll walk down the street and have lunch, and it'll be a good time. And I'm looking forward to that. So please call now, 877-378-8669. Thank you. And I were curled up on my parents' queen-size bed watching the television that sat in the corner of my mother's wooden vanity dresser. Moving Forward by Corinne Jean-Pierre.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
Welcome back. Thom Hartmann here with you. Just to clean up an error on my part from the previous hour. I kept referring to Kyrsten Sinema and as the senator from Arizona that you should keep an eye on with regard to impeachment. And one person on Twitter pointed out that, like Joe Manchin, she's kind of a conservative Democrat, and maybe we should keep an eye on her. But actually, the person I was talking about who's up for re-election, who could be a problem for Mitch McConnell, is Martha McSally. So thank you to everybody who tweeted at me and the people who called and told Joyce. And, you don't always get it right. But anyway, a lot going on. We've got the articles of impeachment being laid down. And on the line with us is our old friend Bryan Pruitt. He is a Republican candidate for the U.S. Senate in Kansas. Pruitt 4, number 4, Kansas.com, Pruitt. Number 4, Kansas.com is his website. You can tweet him at Bryan Pruitt. He also writes for Red State. And Bryan, welcome back to the program.
Thanks for having me, Tom.
My pleasure.
How are things going?
I beg your pardon?
I said, how are things going? Thanks for having me.
Things are going well, and particularly given that we now have a couple of articles of impeachment, and that whole kerfuffle is over, and they're tightly focused, not even on Donald Trump getting rich, or even getting reelected, but on the damage to national security. That's the main frame that these 2 articles are being done through. And I'm just curious what your take is on this, and how you think the Republicans are going to be responding to that. In fact, let me just add, one of the points that I've been making for some time now is that if there's not a vigorous pushback against the behavior that Donald Trump has been engaging in, and I wouldn't limit it just to Ukraine, but and I'm sure you're familiar with the long list of, crimes and high crimes and misdemeanors. If there's not a vigorous pushback, basically what we're doing is ratifying that behavior for future presidents who may be smarter and slicker and more strategic and more willing to become overt demagogues or even dictators than Donald Trump. And that concerns me tremendously. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this, Bryan.
Well, here's what I can tell you. First and foremost, this is not a huge issue outside of Washington, D.C. when I'm on the campaign trail here in Kansas, people are talking about immigration. They're talking about other issues. They're talking about, the tariffs. The tariffs right now here in Kansas, they're affecting farmers a lot more than the impeachment is. And so I think while Washington is going to be completely overtaken by this process, and obviously it's going to be, carried on the news 24/7, it sounds like the Republicans in the Senate have a plan to at least hold a trial, but make it relatively fast. A day is a lifetime in politics. So I don't think we'll be talking much about this regardless come February, March, April during all the primaries.
Interesting. And you fully expect the Senate to fail to convict him?
Yes, absolutely. I think that's a foregone conclusion. I think the interesting thing that I would pay attention to Republicans maybe making a specific point and how the Democrats have potentially overreached was the note from on page 5 that I'll give the correct credit that Darren Samuelson tweeted out, was that there's this whole line about disqualification to hold and enjoy office of honor, trust, or profit. Mm-hmm. And I think as Republicans, the decision on that
that's a quote from the Constitution.
Right. But that decision is made by voters. And I think you're going to see a lot of Republicans, when they do analysis on this, when they go on cable news, talk about how, again, we've made it clear that we think these issues should be settled at the ballot box. My personal opinion, I don't agree with what the president did. But anybody who didn't know this is the way he did business when he was in New York and expected him to behave differently, I think was fooling themselves. And I think the American people made the choice that they did. They'll get another chance and come next November.
Well, 3 million of the American people more than voted for, Trump got 33 million votes, Hillary Clinton got 36 million. But I get, we've got the Electoral College and all that. Interesting.
Yeah, my favorite line when people mention that is there really is no such thing as the popular vote. People keep saying the popular vote, the popular vote. There is no such thing. We have an Electoral College.
Well, there is such a thing. It just doesn't matter politically, unfortunately. And therefore, we've had, I think, four presidents who won the White House after losing the popular vote. In the Senate, we're talking with Bryan Pruitt. He's a Republican candidate for U.S. Senate in Kansas, and I knew Bryan from back in Washington D.C. when you were a political consultant, a Republican consultant, yep. and you used to write for Red State. I assume you still do. And
let me tell you, I'll make one other quick point. Sure. I think the other mistake that the Democrats have made is doing this all between the holidays. When everybody out here in Kansas is busy with their families over Thanksgiving, is busy getting ready for Christmas and New Year's. And so I think a lot of this is lost on average Americans.
Yeah, that may be the case. Now, Mitch McConnell has said, Donald Trump has said that everybody's expecting that the House impeachment vote will happen this week or next week. I mean, Steny Hoyer has to get out there and whip the votes, and once they know, they'll do it.
Yep.
And boom, then it goes off to the Senate. Donald Trump has said he wants the vote in the Senate, or the trial in the Senate, and then the ultimate vote in the Senate to be held before Christmas. In other words, he wants Mitch McConnell to fast-track this. Mitch McConnell said, no way, we're going to wait until after the first of the year. And there is some speculation that, Mitch McConnell is doing that because he wants to mess with the 5 senators. I believe it's 5 Democratic senators who are running for president right now. 4 high-profile ones. You take out Michael Bennet. And so you've got that theory. Another theory is that, and Claire McCaskill floated this morning, that Mitch McConnell will let some of the vulnerable Republicans actually vote for impeachment. Joni Ernst, Tom Tillis, Cory Gardner, Martha McSally, and Susan Collins, and who knows what Mitt Romney is going to do. On the other hand, on the Democratic side, at the very least, you've got Joe Manchin, who, nobody knows which way he's going to go. How are you, as a Republican and as somebody who's got his ear pretty close to the ground right now because you're running for Senate in Kansas? And by the way, who are you running against?
Oh, gosh, there's a ton of people in the race, and everybody, the big unknown in the race is whether Secretary Pompeo is going to get in.
Yeah.
So it's made the race complicated, but hopefully we'll know an answer to that sooner rather than later.
When's the Kansas primary?
Kansas primary is not till next August. Filing deadline is in June. So we've got a lot of runway to work with.
Yeah, and Pompeo's got a lot of time. So anyhow, to my question, handicapping this vote and how it's going to play out from the perspective of a Republican, what do you think?
I don't think any Republican is going to vote for impeachment. That is my initial take on this, because I don't see any Republicans losing independent voters over this impeachment issue. I don't think this is what motivates them. I don't think they're going to I doubt that they'll have commercials run against them about that they voted to acquit the sitting president of the United States. I just don't see it as for any of those that you named it being that huge of an issue either way.
The Republican Party, I grew up with my father was a Republican literally till the day he died. And he was very concerned about the integrity of the political process. And he was an Eisenhower Republican. He was concerned about national security. He was a big advocate of the idea that politics stops at the water's edge. I don't understand what has happened to the Republican Party if you could say and believe that the majority of Republicans don't really, frankly, care that this guy has been breaking the law. From paying off porn stars not to say anything, that was a clear violation of election law, to refusing to participate in congressional oversight, which is mandated by the Constitution. In this case, in the context of impeachment, my mind is boggled, Bryan.
It is a different party, and some people refer to it as Trump's party and not the Republican Party anymore. That's not necessarily true. There's hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of Republicans that are both supporting the president or trying to secure the party's future. That's one of my reasons I'm running.
But aren't people
also
concerned that you can get a Democratic demagogue that if let's say President Bernie Sanders gets elected and says, okay, I'm going to do these things, and damn it, Republicans don't want to go along with me. I'm going to do them by executive order, and I'm going to push them through, and I'm going to I'm going to get the Venezuelans to help me out.
I think we are in unique times, and I think everyone admits that Donald Trump is a once in a lifetime, once in a generation, maybe once in a history of a country figure. Right. And I don't think there's a lot of concern about us getting to a point of no
Bush
return.
lied us into a war, and there was no pushback to that. That concerns me tremendously. It seems to me like our whole political system is slowly disintegrating, and has been ever since the 1970s when the Supreme Court legalized, bribery of politicians.
I don't know if I would call it that, but
well, they legalized big money in politics in '76 with the Buckley case.
One of the things that's most important that we do, and this is one of my campaign platform pledges, is we have to return Congress to its appropriate role in making the decisions. Just like you mentioned, executive orders. I don't support executive orders from either side because Congress needs to be debating if there's anything that is causing deterioration of our political process. It's the fact that Congress, either 9 unelected judges or by executive order, decisions are being made without the input of the people's representatives. And that's what we have to return to, is getting the Congress to debate and decide the issues of the day.
Yeah, I'm totally with you. And by the way, instead of using Bernie Sanders as an example, that was terrible. Bernie would never do that. I should have used Huey Long, because Huey Long would have done that in a heartbeat, right? Although most people probably don't remember Huey Long, I don't know who he is. Bryan Pruitt, he's a Republican candidate for the U.S. Senate running in the Republican primary in Kansas. Pruitt, P-R-U-I-T-T, 4 Kansas.com is the website. You can tweet him at Bryan Pruitt, Bryan, Bryan Pruitt. Bryan, thanks for dropping by. It's good talking with you.
Thanks for having me. Happy holidays.
Thanks. Happy holidays to you too, Bryan. Great talking with you.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
It's 18 minutes past the hour. We'll be back with your thoughts and more of mine right after this. And welcome back. Kat in Independence, Oregon. Thank you for your patience, Kat. My apologies. What's up? Kat?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, you are on the air.
Oh, okay. Okay, good. First of all, congratulations on getting the matching money on getting everybody in the country. That's just wonderful.
Yeah, on Free Speech TV, that is. Yeah.
Yeah. And but I wanted to tell you about my experience talking to my senators.
Okay.
I recently moved to Oregon, and I came from Utah. And it's so nice to be in Oregon, I must say. But I still have a relationship with my senators from Utah. I had set that up over long periods of
that would be Mike Lee and Mitt Romney?
Yeah, that's who it would be.
Yeah.
And of course, it was very frustrating. But I call them still, even though I'm now in Oregon. And when I call them, I've learned to be friendly to the interns. Of course, Mitt Romney has always been a recording from the very beginning. You never talk to anybody there. But I'm friendly to their interns, and I speak in a way that's respectful. But I am very direct, and I don't pull any punches. I've told them this man's obviously guilty. This man's a threat to our elections. And then I actually spoke to Mike Lee's intern and told him, I said, this guy, he's cheated. He's cheating now, and he's going to cheat in the future.
Right.
And there is no doubt that this election coming up in 2020 is going to be, what's the word I want? Contested by both parties.
Right.
It's going to be a mess. And I had him agreeing with me that yes, and that we must protect our election.
Mm-hmm.
So, I went through a period where I'd call him and be angry, and but I find I get better rapport with them, and that they actually listen to me if I'm direct but
sure. Yeah, you catch more flies with honey than vinegar.
You do, you do, and by the time I'm motivated to call them, I'm usually pretty angry. But I've learned to, get it under control and be productive in my phone calls.
Good.
So I encourage everyone to do that, and it's still important right now because I still have Rob Bishop that I need to nag him some more.
Who's Rob Bishop?
He's my representative from Utah.
Oh, so in the House.
He's a hardcore Republican. But anyway, I still call him.
He's a Trumpster.
And I'm still, big time, yes.
Yeah.
Well, it's Utah, so,
Is Independence, Oregon, I don't know where Independence is. Are you in the eastern half of Oregon?
I'm in western. I'm just south of Salem.
Oh, okay. So you're represented by, Peter DeFazio?
No, Kurt Schrader.
Oh, Kurt Schrader. Well, you might want to call him from time to time because he's voting with the Republicans an awful lot.
I do call him.
And Mark Gamba is running a campaign against him in the primary. I don't know if you knew about that, but
I've already hooked up with his website, and I'm going to be working for him.
Yeah, because it's these Democrats who just think they can take us all for granted. It's mind-boggling. Kat, I got to run, but thank you for the call. And, keep up the good work. There's nothing more important than calling your representatives. Well, there's lots of things, I suppose, more important than that. But it's an important thing. It's 22 minutes past the hour. We'll be back with more of your calls in just a moment. Thom Hartmann here. My new book, The Hidden History of the Supreme Court and the Betrayal of America, has arrived. What if the Supreme Court did not have the power to strike down laws? Discover the hidden history of judicial review and this scam called original intent. Learn how we can save the planet by modernizing the Supreme Court. And most important, how we can democratize the Supreme Court now before it's too late. From the time Americans wake up until the time we go to bed, everything we do, touch, ingest, breathe, and use has been touched by the Supreme Court. In this book, I lay out the history of the Supreme Court from Alexander Hamilton until how the court overstepped its constitutional powers. America does not belong to the kings and queens of the court. It belongs to the people. The Hidden History of the Supreme Court and the Betrayal of America is available now in fine bookstores everywhere. You and Bill in Clifton, New Jersey, listening on Sirius XM. Hey, Bill, what's on your mind today?
Well, I just wanted to mention the difference between your last two guests is that I believe, it's just my observation, the last one doesn't confuse emotions and facts, and that if he would never say to Nancy Pelosi, "Do you hate the president?"
Right. No, Bryan Pruitt is a good and decent guy. I got to know Bryan pretty well when we lived in Washington, D.C. I consider him a friend. And even though our politics are, very, very different. And Julio's a friend of mine, too. I've gotten to know Julio well. I've met his family. We get together for meals when I'm in New York. And when we're not talking politics, it's great. When we are talking politics, it gets pretty weird. But anyway,
well,
Bill, back to you.
God bless you for that.
Yeah.
God bless you for that. I just want to also mention that I think that the trial for the removal of President Trump is going to get a lot of eyeballs.
I agree.
The senators who are running for election are going to be in their best performance because there are going to be millions of people. So they may not have to go on the campaign trail during that time. They may get more votes, just their actions in the trial.
Oh, you mean like Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders and Amy Klobuchar? Yeah, good point. Good point. In fact, Klobuchar is on the Judiciary Committee in the Senate. I don't know if they're going to go through. No, I don't think they have to go through a committee process. I think this goes right to the floor. Yeah, this guy, this goes right to the floor, and John Roberts comes in and presides, and Mitch McConnell will be the hand behind the great Wizard of Oz who will be orchestrating it. But John Roberts is going to be front and center. It's going to be interesting.
My real question was, if you worked for the IRS, would you follow the subpoena? If you're a worker there and you had access to Donald Trump's financial records, would you take those and walk them over to Jerry Nadler and hand them as the subpoena requires?
It would depend on how badly I needed to pay my mortgage. I mean, there have been two IRS whistleblowers now, and both of them have been sufficiently intimidated by the Republicans on the House Judiciary Committee, the House Oversight Committee. Ways and Means. It's Richie Neal's committee. Ways and Means is the one that has access to his tax returns. And when they went to the committee, they talked to the staffers, and the Republican staffers basically threatened them, and they both just freaked out and went away. So, that's the big concern. But yeah,
but if it wasn't for personal problems with this, would you do it?
I would do it if it didn't mean risking my family. But, I mean, look at what happened to Christine Blasey Ford. I mean, these people, or Lieutenant Colonel Vindman, he had to move on the base because of the death threats. This is a real tough time in America, Bill. You get the brown shirts out there.
You're listening to the Thom Hartmann Program. Call 202-808-9925.
I would like to see the IRS release, as the law requires, release Trump's tax returns to Richie Neal, though. We'll be back. We did it! Yesterday, we were still short Delaware, Louisiana, Mississippi, Nebraska, New Jersey, Rhode Island, Tennessee, West Virginia, and Washington, D.C. for our 50-state challenge that would unlock a $10,000 gift from an anonymous donor. And thank you, donor. And every single one of those states had to be a brand new person who has never before contributed to Free Speech TV. And we did it. And thank you. Thank you to whoever you may be. I'm guessing you're watching me right now in Delaware, Louisiana, Mississippi. Well, actually, in every single state. We had to get a new person in every single state. So thank you. Thank you so much. Now, and so that's 10 grand for yesterday. Now, what do we do with today? Right? I mean, we have a lot of work to do. We are still behind from last week. Last week was not even close to our goals, shall I say. And we really need to catch up. So please call now, 877-378-8669, and make your contribution to Free Speech TV. It's the time of year that many of our religious traditions tell us, as do the pagan religions, the Yule log and all that sort of thing, that it's the time of year to come together and be thankful for each other, for all the gifts that we have in our lives. This morning, walking into work, I'm looking up at the sky and saying just thank you for everything, for my work, my home, my family, for the people who participate in our program, for everybody and everything. And it's such, gratitude is such an important thing. And I want you to know that I am very grateful that you watch this program, that you tell other people about this program, and that you support this program if you're able to. And there's a lot of ways to support our show and the other good programs, great programs on Free Speech TV. If you have the means, call 877-378-8669 and toss some cash Free Speech TV's way. That's what we need to keep the electrons flowing, to keep the signal on the satellites. The migration to the internet has been extraordinary under the leadership of Ron and Nina, and they we've got Apple and Roku and Sling, and it's all kinds of stuff. I mean, it's really quite extraordinary. But also, so we need the cash to keep that going, but also you can support the program by letting other people know about the program. And creating a little circle of people who are, maybe on your Facebook page or Twitter or in your neighborhood or at your sewing circle or book club or at the local restaurant where you see the same people over and over, whatever it may be. Spread the word. And thank you for that, too. I'm very grateful for Free Speech TV, for all the great people who work there. For the people who work in development there, Christy and Lydia, for the people in programming, for engineering, it's just extraordinary. If you're as grateful as I am, please pick up the phone now, 877-378-8669. There are some premiums that Free Speech TV will send you in exchange for certain gift levels. With a $20 gift, you get a bumper sticker that says, "Gravity, the only law Trump hasn't broken." With a $50 gift, you get the Free Speech TV tote bag that says "Nobody is above the law," which is sort of our slogan for the day. This morning the impeachment articles were laid out. Not sure when they're going to vote on them, but I'm guessing it'll probably be in the next week. And then it goes to the Senate, and we'll see where all this goes. But Trump thinks he's above the law. Nah, nobody's above the law. With a $120 gift, we have two things that you can pick from. Either the T-shirt that says "Never Again Is Now," or this is special, just added today. And that is, I have another book coming out in the Hidden History series. We're trying to bring out two of these books every year. They're small books. They're about 190 pages. And, 5 by 7 in size. They fit in your pocket, and, they're just, well, depends on the pocket, but like in a sports coat or in a handbag or something. And the first was the hidden history of guns and the Second Amendment. The second was the hidden history of the Supreme Court, the betrayal of America. The third book, which will be out in February, I believe, is the hidden history of the war on voting. And it's essentially the hidden history of the Republican war on voting. But, the publisher didn't want to put the word Republican in the title. Free Speech TV is going to be getting these books early. If you take that as a $120 gift now, you will not get the book until January or February, but you'll get it before it's in the stores. With a $240 gift, we've got the online class with me, the virtual class with a $360 gift, 3 books, Hidden History, Guns and the Second Amendment, the Supreme Court book, and The Betrayal of America, and my new book, ADHD, Hunter to Farmer's World. And with a $1,000 gift, come to Portland and hang out with us for the last hour of the show, and then we'll walk down the street and have lunch, and it'll be a good time. And I'm looking forward to that. So please call now, 877-378-8669. Thank you. Coming up on the Science Revolution podcast this week, can you deny we are now standing in an extinction event and disinformation is one of the causes? Mari Margil is the director of the International Center for the Rights of Nature, and she joins me to talk about nature's rights. Other topics include, is obesity causing brain damage in children? And how atmospheric rivers fuel extreme floods in America. You can find the Science Revolution where all fine podcasts are available. Welcome back. Thom Hartmann here with you, 34 minutes past the hour. By the way, an op-ed I wrote over the last weekend just went up in the last hour on Alternet, LA Progressive, and at ourfuture.org, alternet.org, and LA Progressive, I think might be .com, but whatever. It's easy to find. The title over at Alternet is, I was booted from Facebook for no discernible reason. Is it time to rein in the massive power it wields? And the title on LA Progressive and Our Future is it time to regulate or nationalize Facebook? We'll have that conversation tomorrow. I want to bring that up. I think it's an issue that's worth discussing. But in the meantime, we have been talking about politics here. Let's continue with this conversation. Kelvin in Birmingham, Alabama. Hey, Kelvin, what's on your mind?
Hey, Tom, I got one problem with the guy Julio when he said Democrats are in love with power. I couldn't be more proud to be a Democrat right now because every Democrat that's voting for impeachment, job is on the line.
You're right.
That's not being in love with power. That's being in love with the Constitution.
You're absolutely right. It's a huge risk.
It is an extremely huge risk. And the fact that one of your callers, I think his name was Lamont, brought up the fact that 2017, 2018, the Republicans were in charge. They had every opportunity in the world to, investigate Hunter Biden, Joe Biden, or whatever they wanted to do, and they didn't do it at all. And it's not. I just wish Democrats would call them on that.
Yeah.
Just like the 63 million votes compared to the 66 million votes that Hillary got. They keep saying it was the will of the people, and how's the will of the people? And there's 66 compared to 63.
Yeah, and thanks for correcting my numbers. I said 33 earlier. You're absolutely right, Kelvin.
I watched Fox News for some crazy reason last night. I watch it every now and then. As Laura Ingram's show was coming on, she was talking about the FBI, the Inspector General's report, and saying how bad it is for Democrats. And on the Chiron at the bottom of the TV, it was saying that the Inspector General's report found no wrongdoing, while she was on TV saying that this is big trouble for the Democrats.
Right.
I say, wow. So they have absolutely no respect for Republicans who watch that show at all.
Yeah.
They know they listen and don't read. That's the only reason I can see that they would do that.
Yeah, or there's some internal conflict going on at Fox News, and I don't know, but that's fascinating. Kelvin, thank you very much. Thanks for the call, and thanks for pointing that all out. Sam in Denver. Hey, Sam, what's up?
Hi, Tom. I have 3 reasons for impeachment, 2 reasons for impeachment, and one more that they didn't talk about. And one idea for how impeachment conviction could actually happen.
Okay.
So conviction could happen if they did like an anonymous or secret ballot, so-called. And CNN had a video where they described what that is. And they said, well, you have to toss all assumptions of that's never going to happen out the window because, remember, Trump was never supposed to win.
So what am I missing here, Sam?
My point is, your friend, the Republican who was on here
Bryan?
a little while back, he said, they're never, the Republicans are never going to convict him.
Right.
But if they do an anonymous ballot, then why not?
Yeah, well, that's a good question. Probably the why not would be that secrets don't really get kept in Washington, D.C., that the staffers will know that, whatever. Although, I don't know. If they can pull off an anonymous ballot, this will be a test of something that hasn't been tested in a long, long time. Maybe never. I'm not sure that there's ever been an anonymous vote for impeachment in the Senate, and it would require a change in the Senate's rules, but they're going to have to change their rules anyway to establish the rules for this impeachment hearing, just like the House had to do that. So we'll see. We'll see, Sam. Good point. Thank you. Charles in Miami. Hey, Charles, what's up?
Oh, I'm kind of pissed off. Every time I turn around, you had one of your guests today, and he was saying that, well, why this president has, created so many jobs or whatever. Not verbatim, but he was saying there's so many jobs, and why are we doing this to him? First of all, he broke the law. You have people that just merely cross the border to come to America to work or whatever. I mean, and those people are being locked up in cages, separated from their kids. And Republicans, to each man are saying, well, they broke the law. It's the principle of it. Well, this guy broke the law. And we can't prosecute him, but we can't impeach him. So that's what we're doing now. And as far as these Republicans are concerned, we got to remember Donald Trump is only doing what he's doing because these Republicans are aiding and abetting him. They know that this guy is guilty of sin, and they're willing to go down with the ship. But I tell you what,
and that's the sad thing.
Yes, it is, because to preserve our democracy, to preserve our civil rights, we have to stand up and show these people. Even right now, we need to get in the streets and let them know we're watching. And all you senators that's up for this Republican that's up for 2020, you're up for election. We're going to kick you out. And even the Democrats, that want to turn coat, I don't care if you live in a Trump or you're from a Trump district. We're even saying, we're tired of term limits. So basically, you come in, you do your job, and if it's time for you to go, you go, and if you want to come back another time, to be reelected, stand on the work that you've done.
Yeah, I'm with you. And Charles, I think your points are well taken. And let me just repeat one more time: 202-224-3121 is the number of the Congressional Switchboard, and you can ask for your member of the House of Representatives. You can ask for your either of your two senators, and tell them your opinion on these issues, because this is critical time. Thank you, Charles, for the call. Joyce in Chatham, Virginia. Hey, Joyce, what's up?
Hi, Tom. Thank you very much for your program. I so appreciate the information you provide. And I have a request. You hear a lot about gerrymandering on the state level for, and I've never heard anybody really explain how that works. To me, it sounds like they're saying it's a foregone conclusion no matter how many votes they get if the Republicans have drawn these lines to their advantage. I was in hopes that maybe, if not today, one of your programs, you could explain that at length, exactly what that means.
Yeah, I think I can explain it fairly quickly. The Constitution requires that every congressional district in a state, some states are so small that they only have one member of Congress, like Vermont. Okay, so there's no gerrymandering going on in Vermont. But if you go to Massachusetts, or you go to North Carolina, or you go to California, or something like that, these larger states, they have multiple members of Congress, and because they have a larger population, because the Constitution says that, I think originally it was for every 130,000 or something, people, and then they capped it back in the 20s or 30s. That there won't be any more members of Congress. So the districts are now, on average, I think a congressional district represents a little over 750,000 people. So, so you got a state with, let's say it is 750,000 people, and you got a state with 5 million people. You're going to have six congressional districts, more or less, and they have to be drawn in such a way that each one has roughly the exact same number of people. But that's the only guidance that the Constitution provides. So what they do in the states is they'll say, okay, we're going to take the Democratic area, and we're going to, let's say that most of the state is Democratic, but some small parts of the state are Republican. They'll draw the lines in such ways that will dilute the Democratic vote and will emphasize the Republican vote. And by drawing those, and that's why some of them look like salamanders, which is where gerrymander came from. Elbridge Gerry did this in Massachusetts back in the early 1800s.
Yeah.
And he started the process as a member of I think of the state legislature at the time. Maybe he was the governor, I don't recall. And he was one of the framers. He was one of the founders and framers. And so, the bottom line is that you can have a situation like you have in, I believe it was Pennsylvania, was so gerrymandered. It could be North Carolina.
Yeah, North Carolina. Yeah, definitely.
It was terrible. You get a majority of the people voted for Democratic members of the House of Representatives, but a majority of the representatives who go to Washington, D.C. representing the state are Republicans. And that is the case in multiple states. And gerrymandering now has gotten down to being such a precise science that they are literally drawing around individual houses. It used to be around neighborhoods now, and then it went to around blocks, and now they're actually drawing lines around individual houses. So that's what it is, Joyce, and it's pernicious. And the way that California responded to it, and Joyce, thanks for the call. The way that California responded to it is they said, we're not going to let politicians draw these lines anymore. We're going to have the lines be drawn instead by a nonpartisan, independent, politically independent politics commission made up of people who are basically like statisticians and geographers or something, and the goal being that everybody will get equal representation in the state, and districts will no longer be safely anything unless that's just inherent in the district. So that's how it works. We'll be right back.
You're listening to Thom Hartmann. Visit ThomHartmann.com for audio and video archives.
Back with more of your calls in just a moment. It's 45 minutes past the hour here on the Thom Hartmann Program, your media support group for We the People. And welcome back. Tim in Aloha, Oregon. Hey, Tim, what's up?
Yeah, and we've talked a number of times, Tom, but, what I see, and I think I've explained this to you before, I've been in the same neighborhood for 30 years as of June 1st. I've seen all the kids grow up. I knew all the business owners. I was in retail sales for 35 years. I was in the auto industry for 20 years. I know how society works. And what I do is I still talk to everybody in the area because I patronize all the stores. There's a complacency that's going out of hand right now. As much as people think of this impeachment and the Mueller probe have an effect on people, they're concerned with their everyday finances and their kids going to school and their credit card debt and so forth. This is a scary situation, The ideal situation, if they threw that man out of office, look who'd replace him. We've got another year of a nightmare coming up with, regardless of what happens with this impeachment inquiry. And the Senate's not going to do anything about it. He's overcoming all the legal aspects of what could be adverse in his political stay in the office, and they're beating it. They're beating the system, basically. Is what it amounts to.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, you were talking to one of your Republican candidates. He hit that right on the nose. And the Republicans understand that. The Democrats don't. And that's one of the key features in what's happening in this country, Well,
I think the Democrats get that. They just felt that they can't let this stand. I mean, it's just that simple. It may not be the smartest thing politically, but at a certain point, you've got to stand up and say, I am here to defend the Constitution of the United States. That's the oath that I took. I'm defending my nation against a corrupt and criminal president. And
I agree with you 100%.
And frankly, I think after the holidays settle down and when the trial happens in the Senate, I think there is going to be a lot of attention paid to it. And I think that it's also entirely possible that by that time, some of these things will have worked their way through the courts, and we may know a lot more about the crimes that Donald Trump has committed, and his taxes may be available. And the impeachment trial in the Senate might provide a venue where the Supreme Court can actually order some of this stuff to happen.
Yeah, but you've got to get the millennials to understand what's going on.
Oh, I think the millennials are all over this. I think the millennials are all over this because they know that Donald Trump is a climate denier, and that's one of the bigger issues for millennials. The group that I'm concerned about are the Gen X and Gen Z, the Gen Xers, basically, the middle generation, the people who are between their early 30s and mid 50s, who are just working their butts off. And like you said, they're concerned about paying the bills, making the rent, getting the food, and for them, the Democrats actually offer a really good, and this is where the Democratic primaries are going to help, a really good alternative to what's going on. Trump says the economy is better than it's ever been. There's more jobs than there's ever been. That's true, but what kind of jobs are they? People can't live on $15 an hour.
And the key element to that, people still don't understand this. Like I said, I was in retail sales. I dealt with banks, credit unions, and insurance companies. The Obama administration turned this country around. Look what right. the Republican ideology was in 2012. They wanted to let the auto industry go bankrupt.
Yep.
What do you think would have happened? And then, of course, that depression caused by the Cheney-Bush administration had nothing to do with Bush. It was Cheney.
Right.
And I wish I could write a book about that. But
that actually, I think you could take back to 1998 and 1999 and 2000. That was the deregulation of the banks. That was blowing up Glass-Steagall is what caused that, and among other things. But the bottom line is, if you look at the long historical arc of the United States, the one single variable that most consistently predicts whether the White House changes parties is the economy. When the economy is doing well, the White House tends to stay in the same party. When the economy, is doing poorly, the White House tends to change.
And ultimately, the power of Fox News, that's what we have to overcome.
There you go. Tim, thanks for the call. Thom Hartmann here. My new book, The Hidden History of the Supreme Court and the Betrayal of America, has arrived. What if the Supreme Court did not have the power to strike down laws? Discover the hidden history of judicial review and this scam called original intent. Learn how we can save the planet by modernizing the Supreme Court. And most important, how we can democratize the Supreme Court now before it's too late. From the time Americans wake up until the time we go to bed, everything we do, touch, ingest, breathe, and use has been touched by the Supreme Court. In this book, I lay out the history of the Supreme Court from Alexander Hamilton until how the court overstepped its constitutional powers. America does not belong to the kings and queens of the court. It belongs to the people. The Hidden History of the Supreme Court and the Betrayal of America is available now in fine bookstores everywhere. We did it! Yesterday, welcome back. Boy, do we have, there's so much to talk about. Kathy in Kenosha, Wisconsin. Hey, Kathy, what's up?
Hi.
Hi, Kathy.
I'm from Wauwatosa, Wisconsin.
Uh-huh.
And my question is regarding the Ukraine military aid. $35.2 million still hasn't been given to them?
That's correct. And President Zelensky has not yet been invited to the White House for a state dinner, although the foreign minister of Russia was invited to the White House today.
Correct. But no one is talking about the fact that $35.2 million hasn't been released.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right. You're right. We've mentioned it a few times on this program, and I need to do a little research and dig a little deeper into exactly what what that's for and why it hasn't been released. I'm guessing, though, that that's still the Trump administration screwing with Zelensky. Kathy, thanks for the call. Mike in Tacoma, Washington. Hey, Mike, what's up?
Hey, Tom.
Hey.
So, anyways, I was going to talk about the 63 million votes compared to 66 million votes. And then somebody else mentioned it. One thing you did say, you said that, every state has at least 3 congressmen.
No, every state has one, at least one.
No, Tom.
Oh, 3 members of Congress. Yes, 2 senators and 1 member of the House. Yeah, got it.
A senator is a congressman. A representative is a congressman.
Right. Although in popular vernacular, when you refer to somebody as a congressman or a congresswoman, you're referring to a member of the House of Representatives. The House and Senate in Congress represents Congress, technically and classically. But the common language is to refer to members of the House of Representatives as congresspeople and senators as senators. But what's your point, Mike? Or was that your point?
Anyways, one thing I was going to ask about, so Jim Jordan, he all the time, he likes to spread three lies. Two of them I can remember. I can't remember the third. He says that Trump won by the will of the people, which he didn't. He won by the will of the Electoral College, which we're the only country in the world has that.
Correct.
And then also he talks about those transcripts of the phone call. That transcript was an annotated. It wasn't a true.
Correct. And yesterday in the hearings, he said it was a complete transcript and blah. Yeah, you're absolutely right. No, Jim Jordan and Devin Nunes are just lying through their teeth. I mean, it's just a constant thing.
I hate those two guys. I hate them.
I get it. Okay, but let's not talk about hate, Mike. Thanks a lot for the call. Con in Elizabeth, New Jersey. Hey, Con, what's up?
Hello, Tom. First-time caller.
Thank you. What's on your mind?
So what I've been trying to just understand these Republicans, and over the years and observation, starting from Reagan to today, what I see is these people, they don't care about the country. They don't care about the people. These people, they only care about money and their position and having their place at the table, and they...
Yeah, I agree. I just tweeted out an article about that just a few minutes ago. I completely agree with you, James. Excuse me, with Con.
It's unbelievable to me how people continue to put these people in those positions, especially senators and
don't underestimate the power of money. This is, when the Supreme Court legalized corporate bribery in 1976 in the Buckley decision, and they said that individual billionaires can not only run for office and use their own money without any limits and without any restrictions, see Mike Bloomberg, but also, and Tom Steyer for that matter. Excuse me, I just sneezed. But also that if a very wealthy person, and then 2 years later in the First National Bank decision, if a very wealthy corporation owns an individual member of Congress to the point where they're constantly voting, purely the interest of that person, that's not bribery. That's First Amendment protected free speech. So, Con, that's just the way it is. I'm sorry. We need to overturn those Supreme Court decisions. But anyhow, Bernard in Savannah, Georgia. Hey, Bernard, what's on your mind today?
Okay. I think there's a correction need to be made with North Carolina, the gerrymandering. I don't know if I'm saying that right.
Okay.
But a couple of days ago, I believe the courts upheld for the Democrats in gerrymandering in North Carolina.
Yes and no. No, the court first said that the Republican gerrymander was illegal and it had to be redone. The Republicans are still in charge, so the Republicans redid it, so it wasn't quite as bad, but it still gives the Republicans an advantage. You could still, in North Carolina, have a majority of voters vote for a Democrat and have a majority of the congressional delegation be Republicans. That went back to the court because there's an election coming up, and the court said, it's not good, but, we're going to allow it. So the Republicans got a half victory. I don't think the Democrats got a victory at all, Bernard. Thanks a lot for the call. Mike in Oswego, New York. Mike, we just have a minute left. What's up? Quick one? In fact, we have 30 seconds.
Hi, Tom. Thank you. Hey, I just wanted to float a quick idea. I think that the Democrats should totally suspend this whole process until the people that are stonewalling agree to honor the subpoenas. Just leave it hanging over their heads.
That's going to put it out past the election. I mean, that's going to put it into next year, and that means that Donald Trump gets to continue to beg foreign countries to interfere in our elections. That's not a solution. Anyhow, I think I get where you're coming from, assuming you're not a Republican troll, but. Anyhow, it's not a solution. And thanks so much for being with us today. We'll be back tomorrow, same time, same place. Check out my articles today on Alternet, the LA Progressive, and ourrevolution.org. And don't forget, democracy is not a spectator sport. It requires all of us, and that includes you. So get out there, get active, tag You're It, and share Progressive Media with your friends.
You've been listening to Thom Hartmann. For audio and video archives, visit thomhartmann.com.
We say fight back!
Thom Hartmann here. My new book, The Hidden History of the Supreme Court and the Betrayal of America, has arrived. What if the Supreme Court did not have the power to strike down laws? Discover the hidden history of judicial review and this scam called original intent. Learn how we can save the planet by modernizing the Supreme Court. And most important, how we can democratize the Supreme Court now before it's too late. From the time Americans wake up until the time we go to bed, everything we do, touch, ingest, breathe, and use has been touched by the Supreme Court. In this book, I lay out the history of the Supreme Court from Alexander Hamilton until how the court overstepped its constitutional powers. America does not belong to the kings and queens of the court. It belongs to the people. The Hidden History of the Supreme Court and the Betrayal of America is available now in fine bookstores everywhere. Our book today in the Thom Hartmann Book Club is Crusaders, the Epic Hit.